Welcome back, everybody, to Scaled Success Reptile Podcast. Thanks for joining us on this one, episode 42. Tonight we got Brandon, Nixon Reptiles. We're going to talk a little bit about a whole bunch of different reptiles that he's got in his collection and stuff like that. Brandon, how's your day going? How's your night going so far?
Pretty good. Just, day at work, come home, do some stuff with the snakes. My girlfriend works or my fiance rather, works a interesting schedule, so it kind of leaves my nights free to do my work or snake stuff until she gets home a little bit later. So
Gotcha.
Kind of works out because it doesn't take away time from her.
That's good. That's good, man. Yeah. So before we fully get into everything, do our usual USARK shout outs and sponsor stuff. So guys, USARK Florida, make sure you guys are a member to it. Just so you know, it is separate from USARK National. So you also need a membership for USARK Florida. And then as we're talking about USARK National, you need a membership to both these both nonprofits help fight any legislations coming against exotic animals, reptiles, and animals in general. And then USARK is here for the local legislations here in Florida. And then one thing I want to mention to you all is something we just recently started is Clover's Reptile Patreon. We're trying to build a community for colubrid keepers, mainly hognose, get into the Barons race and some Madagascar giants, and then just trying to build a community that we can all share and our experiences and any information that we have about these species or other species in a good, fun environment where nobody's there to tear your head off. So that's what we're here trying to build. Now to our sponsorships. We have Sea Serpents, racks, and incubators. If you guys are looking for any PVC racks or incubators, make sure to message Chris at Sea Serpents. Some of the best customer service I've ever experienced here in the reptile industry. And we have Blake's Exotic Feeders. If you're looking to add a little bit of variety to your feeders, make sure to hit up Blake's Exotic Feeders on Instagram or on his website and order some quail. He's got button quail, day-old button quails, incubated egg quails, and then everything from extra small size up to ex-breeder quails for any of the larger species as well. And is bred directly on his farm and directly to your doorstep. So check that out, message him. And then we have Husbandry Pro. If you guys are looking to take your record keeping to the next level, making sure that you guys can track everything that's going on with your reptiles, especially the breeding process, which is currently going on here in our area here. So make sure you guys use Clover 60 when you guys try it out. So as usual, anything that I mentioned here and sponsors and stuff like that, it's companies that we personally work with. We build relationships, stuff like that. So make sure when you guys go over there, make sure to tell them that Clover's Reptiles sent you. So that's what we got going on for tonight. And again, make sure you guys subscribe and hit the like button here. Drop a comment, drop a super chat if you guys have any questions for Brandon or myself, and get the conversation started. So Brandon, we met. I think first time I ever met you and we actually we talked for a little bit was at the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo in Charlotte.
Was it there or did you do Bob's show or no?
No, I didn't do Bob's show.
Okay.
So
they were back to back. So
back.
All that just blended.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You're with your dude that does the sand boas too.
Correct. Yeah, man. Local young guy that has been in the reptile world since he was a little kid and now starting to breed some sand boas and stuff like that. So shout out to Maldonado's Exotic. So if you guys are looking for sand boas and stuff like that, go check them out. But yeah, we met, talked a little bit about hognose and just the reptile show there that afternoon and stuff. But then been talking a little bit more on social media and stuff. And I wanted to bring you on because you definitely have a wide variety of species. But then you're now diving into the hognose and some colubrids, which is really cool. And I mentioned that to you, how now, especially specific ball python breeders or maybe bigger boa or python breeders are jumped into the smaller colubrids. So it's really interesting to see that. And I want to really pick your guys' brain to see what was the decision to get there, and what have you seen the difference, and goods and bads, because there's also there's always two sides to the coin.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
you know so tell us a little bit, about your beginnings and how this all culminated to where you're at now.
I mean, the long story short of it is, it's just always liked snakes, just cool. Seeing Steve Irwin, Nigel Marvin, Jeff Corwin, like all those guys, like on,
Yep.
Julian Sylvester, like all those guys on like Animal Planet back in like my like early elementary, middle school, like all those kind of years. Like it was just cool. Like snakes in general, they just fascinated me. Like how they move, like the structure, the pattern, like all that stuff. It was just really cool. Like they're
Hmm.
just a very unique animal, and it's definitely like it's definitely a pet peeve of mine, but you have those like people that love watching or they love putting up videos as like a shock factor of animals eating like another animal. And it's like, that's just weird to me. Like that never appealed to me. Like my
Yeah.
first pets were like rats. So it's like my first like pets that lived for a while were rats. And it's like, I just don't like that. But, first snakes I ever had were like a couple corn snakes that kept getting out like relentlessly, and we kept finding them in the same spots. Don't remember what happened to them. I'm sure at one point they just got out and stayed, in the wild. Who knows? But yeah, eventually convinced my mom to let me get a boa when I was in high school. Well, horribly. I actually had a Burmese python before that, which isn't ideal. But I sold her when she got to be
Okay.
about 6 feet, which was after about 2 years. And that was when I was going to be going into the military. So I was like, can't have my parents dealing with her.
Hmm.
A couple other big snakes and then the boas. And I always really liked those. And then I just didn't have great success with breeding them. It was just really kind of spotty. So I, eventually kind of threw in the towel, raised the white flag, kind of gave up on those, and decided to kind of focus a little bit more on the ball pythons. I like the colors, the patterns, everything else. The big downfall to those is primarily the live feeding situation,
Hmm.
um, which is actually kind of what drew me into like the colubrids, right? Because I don't really think a ball python is actually a great pet snake or a great first pet snake.
That's
Mostly
interesting.
mostly
Yeah.
because of the live feeding aspect, right? Like if you have these things at a show and some kid gets it and it's like they have this grandiose idea of feeding it a frozen thawed rat or mouse, like it can work. And I have several here that will take them without question,
Hmm.
but that's not typical. Like there's plenty here that I give them. I like hold the frozen thawed rat in front of them, and then they do that little, you can tell they're not feeling it. Like they
Yeah.
have no interest at all. But a colubrid is not that way. Um,
Hmm.
so that is kind of what got me into. And I had looked. I actually had a small group of corn snakes, milk snakes, and a couple of bull snakes probably about 4 years ago, and then I decided that I didn't want to work with them because of the brumation
Mm.
situation. Like I just felt weird about it, right? I was like, like I don't know, like it just seemed like a lot of extra steps, and it's like I don't know, I don't know, it
Yeah.
just didn't compute to me. But then after talking with Brian Carter, who you've had on here, like, and I talked to him a while ago too, and or before he started getting into them, and the hognose snakes were kind of appealing, and then I heard a couple people that had bad experiences with them,
Yeah.
but their bad experiences where they went from like 0 to 100, and they picked up like somebody's collection that was already producing, and then they had like a couple hundred babies, and then it was like trying to get those all feeding, and it was like a nightmare. And I think that just comes from like not having been prepared to like have that many.
Hmm.
um but I eventually got over the idea of the whole brumation thing and decided that I wanted to get back into. So I like had already sold all my other colubrids that I had once upon a time, and the last like 2 years I've been picking up like a small number. Like I don't have too many, but like I want to keep it that way. I want to have a um reasonable number of hognose, and then I want to have just like probably like 5 or 6 bull snakes.
Nice.
Just keep that pretty small. I thought about other ones, like, some milk snakes, but it's like they produce such small clutches, and likewise, like some of the corn snakes, like there's some really beautiful ones,
Mm-hmm.
but they produce such small clutches and the babies are so tiny. It's just like, not that hognose babies are monsters by any means.
Yeah.
But at least there's like, there's more variety, and I feel like there's in general a little bit more interest, and
Seriously.
the cute little attitudes that they have, which
Yeah.
are just so ridiculous. I brought my fiance in the other night before I was like feeding to like watch how ridiculous they are, because a couple of them all open up the tub and they just start coming at me with their mouth open, just like, "Hey, is it food time?" And it's like,
Yeah.
no, idiot.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a single brain cell between all the ones I have. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly don't understand how they survive in the wild.
Yeah. And you brought up a couple of good points. Like one one thing I've gotten asked before was like, is it hard to breed hognose? And I think the biggest thing I tell is people, it's the hardest part is getting over the brumation process.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first year I brumated, I
You're
was
like,
in there,
damn, are these
bro.
things going to come out of the fridge?
Yeah, I was checking every couple of days, like opening the fridge, opening tubs and everything. And stuff. I was like, are these things going to be okay?
These
Even,
things live in places that snow, though. So it's like
yeah,
they figure it out,
yeah. It's
Like,
us. It's really us getting over the fact that we're putting, you know, the opposite
a
of what
cold
we
blooded
get used to.
animal in
Yeah,
a
in the
fridge.
fridge. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I tell people. It's like it's getting once you get over that hump, then it's pretty easy. As long as, like you said, you're well prepared. You're not gonna produce 300 babies your first year, and then you have a whole bunch of babies that aren't eating and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's another thing too that I'll get people that will come to me, especially at shows and stuff like that, and say, "Man, I wish I could get a hog nose." And ask, if you mind me asking, why can't you get one? Um, oh, they don't eat well. They're problem feeders and stuff like that. And
Are they
yes,
talking about ball pythons?
you
It's
know,
like,
and I think right, like I think any species or most species of reptiles and snakes, stuff like that can have that issue. And I
yeah.
always tell people, it's like, getting stuff well started is the first, process of getting a good animal,
Oh,
getting a
yeah,
healthy
definitely.
animal and stuff like that. But yeah, I think you brought up a good couple points, and the hognose, like you said, their attitudes, their little quirkiness of how they interact and how they act is really interesting.
Yeah.
Another big thing people ask me is, do they bite? And of course, any animal can bite, but generally they're not biters. It's like if you get bit by a hognose,
You try.
unless, yeah, for sure. Like you have enough, what's it called? Um, Warning and body language.
But
Um,
that's hard to like even read though, because, and it's just like, it's so like, I laugh about it even thinking about it, because it's like you pick one up and it literally is there for 1 second, and then next second it's like they're so like twitchy,
yeah,
and they just like bounce from like one spot to another. It's
yep,
practically like they teleport. But
yeah.
when they strike, they do the same strike that a bull snake strikes. Like, they just headbutt you. They don't really
Mm-hmm.
strike with their mouth open. If their
Mm-hmm.
mouth is open, they legit think it's food.
Oh, for
But it's
sure.
like, but they think they're like, the side of their enclosure is food. They think their water dish is food. Like,
Mm-hmm.
anything that they can try and put their mouth on, they will assume is food. But that was actually a thing I didn't like about the milk snakes, is like every single time I handled it, I just expected it to like turn on me and start biting. But it's like none of the hognose, they haven't done that yet. I'm
Yeah,
sure eventually one will do that.
yeah.
But like, I watch them and I make sure, like, after I yoink them out, like they just sit there for a second. They realize, oh, okay, this is like handling time. This isn't like food. Like, nothing crazy is going on. I'm just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like everything else. You have to learn how to like read their like body language, but you have to like
100%.
try to get bit by a hognose.
Yeah, yeah. Like I have, I'll be honest. Like, I have maybe two large females that are, they'll eat 2, 3 days later after they're ready to eat. They want to eat again. And those I do have to watch. As soon as I open the bin, I have to watch. Like they're coming out. But once you pick them up, they realize, all right, I'm not eating. And
Yeah.
it's like you said, like you have to try to get bit. Um, and of course, I've gotten bit by babies and stuff like that, and that's just me being, going through one baby bin at a time. Quickly
Yeah.
feeding and stuff like that. But Other than that,
Well,
pretty easy animals to handle.
yeah, for sure. And that's
Mhm.
like another thing too. And it goes back to like overall, like I don't know. I find, and this is probably just me, or I mean, sure, there's other people who probably think it too, but it's like not everything has to be like, I don't know, super like businessy or whatever. It's just like they're an enjoyable pet. The colubrids in general, they stay a very manageable size,
Mhm.
handleable, and most all of them will readily eat frozen thawed items. It's like, I
Yep.
mean, shoot, honestly, like most other snakes will actually eat frozen thawed items without a problem. It's pretty much just ball pythons and a couple other select, ones that decide that they want to eat like geckos or something, or
Yeah.
like anoles or something crazy like that. It's nice. And like another perk too is like my fiance wants to do like a bunch of traveling and stuff eventually. So having the colubrids, like with the whole brumation thing, that's a period of time where you have less responsibility. Now,
Yes.
granted, I would still have the other animals, but realistically, if I wanted to go to another country for a week or 2 weeks, like it's not going to matter. Like my parents or something or a friend can come and check the snake room like
Mhm.
once a week and make sure it's all still here. But
Mhm.
at least by being able to put those, colubrids, into brumation, it's one less thing you have to worry about. And I think, a lot of animals like in captivity, they get fed too much. I mean, we've all seen the monster burms and retics.
Mhm.
Like those things are by far way too big. And I think that, with the colubrids, it's like they kind of need that break to reset their metabolism and reset everything else to get into that whole like breeding mode
Yeah.
versus the other stuff where we just like relentlessly feed it until it like decides it has had enough to reproduce.
Yeah,
So,
man. That's another great point I tell people as well. It's like if you have family, if you like to travel, it's another good point where you could brumate this animal for 2 months and not worry too much about it, right? Like,
yeah.
especially the way you could do it now, everything automated, thermostats automated. You could put a camera in the
Yeah.
cooler, which all that stuff. So easier, to do. Um, so with you have some hog nose now. Um, what you're still mainly ball python though, right?
I
Um,
mean, that's the bulk of the collection.
the
Yeah.
bulk of the collection, yeah. And then what else do you have that you're breeding currently?
Um, I might try for like a pair of like Burmese pythons this year,
Mm-hmm.
Florida's favorite. But I got some triple het stuff for caramel granite pieds, which are like really just a really cool project and really
Mm-hmm.
pretty. So I would like to breed those and hopefully produce, a caramel pied or a caramel granite pied or whatever. And I'll just enjoy those. I do have a pair of blood pythons that I put together, and then the ball pythons. So
Nice. So with the ball pythons, and the berms and stuff like that, how have you gone from bigger snakes to the small
I know
colubrid?
it's kind of funny, right? Yeah.
Yeah. you
I don't
know,
know. It's just, I mean, first off, they're less work in that regard too.
yeah.
Like whenever I clean like the berms enclosures, like it's not like it's bad or hard or anything else, but it's just like, I mean, you're supposed to, have, if they're been massive, it's like ideal to have somebody here. But
Mm-hmm.
berms, I feel like I trust those way more than I'd ever trust a retic. But I just, pull her out, put her in a big bin, do the cleaning, and put her back in. But it's just like they're just so much work to like do that, and then the
Mm-hmm.
rodents are so much, or the rabbits and everything else are so much larger, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not just stuck on one species. Like there's so many cool things out there that like there's just so much variety. So it's just hard. Like I could look at one thing. Like we went to a reptile show like probably a year or something ago, and my fiance really liked the look of those White's tree frogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent the next like 2 weeks doing like a stupid amount of research on it for no reason whatsoever. Like, if that's what you're interested in, and we can get some and you can have a couple and they'll be like
Yeah.
a fun little thing,
Yeah.
but it's like she decided she didn't want to. But it's like there's so many cool things. Oh, and I have like a couple of leopard geckos that Krista, Neurify
Mm-hmm.
Exotics, kind of like got me into, because I wanted something that I could just like enjoy a little bit and kind of be a pet, but still have like a cool little project.
Yeah.
You know, so I have a couple of those, and I do plan on getting a couple more, but that's another thing where like I want to keep it small. Like I want to keep it like, I don't know, 2 or 3 trios of something, and then just do like the line breeding to get the look that I want. And that's my
Mm-hmm.
same goal with the hognose. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't care to um try and produce like, I don't know, some of the stuff, and it's personal preference, personal taste.
For sure, always.
When you start mixing too many things, it just blanks out, and then they all start looking the same. I have zero desire for that except for the leucistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the leucistic, it's a white snake. You know, it's the, you know, you get what you get there. Like,
Yeah.
but the other stuff, like I really want to put energy into trying to make like the prettiest version of that thing that can be done. Because I think with those, like, I mean, who wouldn't want like a pet animal that's in like that 500 plus or minus range that's just gorgeous?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
just a beautiful thing to look at, regardless of what makes it up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, man. And you know, and that's another I think another different mindset too as well from especially the ball python breedings and stuff like that, where line breeding is big in hognose as well, you know, along with like the leopard geckos and stuff.
yeah,
Um
and in boas,
and in boas, yeah.
like a lot of other, like, you know, and there's a guy in Retix, Shane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like he does like a lot of stuff with his whole like little slogan is like epic floating, you know, epic floatingness or something like that. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
he just makes them insanely orange like retics. And he
That's cool.
like they're just the brightest, most like fully saturated orange. And I, you know, line breeding really isn't so much a thing in ball pythons. Granted, you want a good example of something to like
Mm-hmm.
pass down, but you could get good exampled animals out of like not the best example. But like in
Yeah.
hognose and in like leopard geckos and in boas and stuff like that, like you want the one that has like the pattern or the color. Like my like my hognose, my like conda stuff that I got, like I have like a conda sable. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wanted one that was like that green, like that real nice green color,
Yeah.
because it's like that's the look that I like that, like, and I've seen some, they call them like the watermelons or there's like, but it's like that green, but then also like mixing that in with like the what is it, like the lemon ghost, like the
Yes.
lemon ghost into like the sable into the conda,
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna get more of that like actual like deep like forest green color. And it's like stuff like that, just line breeding that to like make really pretty like, you know, good green shades, I think is, you know, I don't know, that's my direction anyway, or the way that I like to think of it.
No, and you know what? I think you are going the right direction. You know, I think sometimes in all types of reptile breedings and stuff, we try to chase that next project or that multi-gene project, and by the time you start chasing it and you get there, um,
It's already a thing of the past.
it's already a thing of past, and you're either hopefully you really like that animal, you really like that combo, and you chase it because you really like it, because sometimes you're stuck with these animals, right? You can't either you can't move
They,
them or you have to take a big hit on the project that you did,
yeah.
and stuff like that. So we're like line breeding, especially in hognose, and like you were saying, other species too. It's the way to go because um, I think we're getting to where I'm seeing the hognose, where you're getting maybe some 4 gene animals coming out, and they're just all either washed out or they're becoming just another pink hognose. Where I think we really got to be selective on what genes we're throwing on top of each other instead of just saying, well, I'm going to throw albino into everything. I'm going to throw sable into everything. And then I'm going to throw axanthic into everything, you
Hmm.
know? And I think where the line breeding is going to may definitely make a difference in any of those combos.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
for sure. One thing just when you mentioned the Xanthic, it made me really think, because like I wasn't too sold on like lavender for a while,
hmm
and I didn't get like talked into it, but like I was persuaded to like it.
yeah.
Um just because like I didn't really see him. First, I didn't really see him in person. And it's honestly kind of hard at a show to really appreciate the way that they look because they're so damn tiny. So for you to
Yes.
like look at it, you have to be like real close to this little bastard.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, but I got like a Xanthic superconda male to breed into one of my feet to breed with like, and I think he's, what is he? Yeah, it's no.
You
Yeah,
have
super toffee belly. So he's for like toxic conda
toxic.
stuff.
Yep.
So that's what I thought, but I have like another like the sable conda that's het albino too. But it's like, so I have that Xanthic, you know, super conda that's het toffee belly for like the toxic stuff because I like that look. It's really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But then whenever I got that super conda lavender, I was like, damn, like that's like a different color. And you
Yeah.
really can't appreciate it because honestly, a lot of people take horrible pictures of their animals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like seeing them literally side by side, you can really appreciate those lavender and purple tones in comparison to like just like the regular like Xanthic. And I
Yeah.
still think it's a wonderful project. Like I think they look awesome and I have no desire to not have it. But I just like didn't like I wasn't aware of like that look, like how like striking that difference would be.
Yeah, man. I tell people like the Lavender Project. To me, it's a must in any hognose
Yeah, no,
collection.
I've seen them in like your videos and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like still it really like it looks fine, but like it
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't do it justice. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these you really need to see in person, and it kind of sucks because like one of my favorite projects in the ball pythons is the sunset, and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
talk shit about it or they say bad things about it. My bad, I know PG-13 show,
It's good. It's
but
good.
they say stuff about it, and you know it's like people either love it or they hate it, you know, and
Yeah.
it's really one or the other. But it's like sometimes people just don't take good photos and sometimes they're bad examples, but like when you see them in person you can really appreciate them more, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that goes really far with a lot of these like these hognose, like the mai tais, the same thing.
Yes.
Like the mai tais look gorgeous in person, and some of the photos they look amazing, but some of the other ones it's like, is this the right choice? Like whenever I was going to get my first one, I was just looking up a bunch of them and stuff, and then I seen some, and I was like, and then I seen them at a show, and I was like, you know, like they definitely looked better, but then the lighting was like off, but the one that I ended up getting, like, she's phenomenal looking, and she's getting better as she ages.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes they need to get to that like 100-gram mark, or
To
something.
make
You
a
know,
difference.
they need to get a good amount bigger to where you
Yeah.
can really appreciate like the color and just the saturation and everything else.
Yeah. And then again, the line breeding aspect of it, you know, what color of toffee belly you're breeding back into that sable and stuff. Because I, like you said, I seen the lighter color of the mai tais
Mm-hmm.
and then the darker, more saturated colors of mai tais. And you know, definitely the lineages of the darker, you know, the more saturated stuff looks better and holds up better over the years.
Yeah.
One thing though that it sucks to say, but like Arctic mai tais are not great. They're super washed out and stuff. So those I think are even like in person are
It's
hard to move.
It's kind of hard too because like, what's my mail that I have? Yeah, that's exactly what I have. I have an Arctic toffee belly conda that's het sable.
Sable, yeah,
So it's like I
yeah,
got it, you know, whatever. And
yeah.
I have it for my Mai Tai female. Um, will I change that direction? I don't know. He's really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I do think like the yellow, the straw color that they have is pretty nice though.
Yes.
So it's like I do think that like that Arctic and toffee combo is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really neat look, but like also like I think like when you do like even like super Arctics look really cool. Like I have two super Arctic
Mm-hmm.
females, and they're like the pattern that they have is really cool. Their like dark eyes are really cool.
Yep.
So it's just figuring out the way to stack certain things, but Arctic does lighten the contrast of an animal more than sometimes you would like it to do. But
Yes.
not everything has to be like an Arctic mixed with other stuff. Like you could just do like super Arctic things.
Mm-hmm.
like my little like super Arctic super conda albino that I have, she's crazy looking. Like she's just this little glowworm,
Yeah.
like with these like cute little red eyes and like a little stripe, and it's just I don't know. She's got a cool look to her. You know, it's just like a little bubblegum pink.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the albinos, that works really well because you can end up with like the two flavors. Like I've seen stuff, and I don't know how much drama it is. So I'm not here to like spread misinformation, but like the pink pastel albinos, I've seen a bunch of stuff where there's issues and there's this, and then it's like bred out sometimes, but sometimes there's still problems, and I don't know. But like having Arctic and albino kind of gives it that same bubblegum pink kind of look.
Yeah.
You know, and then likewise, you know, you can go darker and produce, you know, like the solar flares and all that other stuff too. So it's like you could really kind of pick your battle as far as like what you want to do, like tonally with all of these different options. And it's kind of nice too, because the hognose are kind of limited, right? Like there's not like 50 different mutations. Like
No.
there's
No.
like less than 20.
I would say right
half of
now,
those
like,
are polygenic.
yeah, correct. So like with maybe
So
like recessive, you know, everything that's recessive, I'll say maybe like 15 so far,
yeah,
if
something
that,
like that. It's not a very high
you know,
number.
no, it's not at
And
all.
a lot
Not
of
at all.
them are, which is also a disadvantage. A lot of them are so similar that it's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like you got the toffee belly and you got the Evans hypo. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
battling between which one of those I liked more, and I decided to do the toffee belly.
Yeah,
Although some of the names for like the Evans hypo stuff is really cool.
it
And
is. It is.
sometimes I see them and they're like, man, those are so pretty. But then I see like my toffee stuff too, and I was like, it's just as pretty.
I like
Like
both of them,
you
man.
just want what's like you don't have too. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
horrible. But it's like
Yeah.
I also want to keep my numbers very like reasonable. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have too many. I don't want to be in a position where I'm like where I could attempt to make like so many clutches. Like I want it to be regulated. I want, you know, reasonable project numbers because these animals do live for a long time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all of
And
them.
they double clutch too as
Yeah.
well. So you don't, you know, with
But I see that
most
as a
of the
plus,
times.
right? Because you can have
Yeah.
less animals and produce more
Correct.
babies for
Correct.
more holdbacks for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know go on and do something like that. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. You know, and with the pink pastel stuff, I don't have any in my collection either. And I had the same thoughts, like another pink, reddish, you know, morph and stuff like that, where same thing, you can create it, either you put lavender albino, you do super arctic albino and stuff. There is some cool combos with PPA. But for me at this point, there's so much, there's way more stuff that I want to add to the collection that I have added
yeah,
before PPA.
that
And
blends
then
in better.
yeah, that blends in better. You know, and then with the PPA stuff, I think we're pretty much out of the woods with any like major neurological or deformities. As long as you're doing, you know, visual to hets, you have a
I was
better.
going to say that's actually a plus, I think, kind of in the
Mhm.
hognose because it does one, it gives your variable as far as like your clutch production, so you have like a
Mhm.
good variety of stuff,
Yep.
um, which helps with you know less overproduction of certain
Correct.
mutations.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of nice, and it's like in that way you can honestly stack visual females if you want, and then just reinvest in like power packed het males, which are probably going to be cheaper anyway.
Mhm.
So it's like kind of like a win-win situation, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, but have you ever been to just in the light of the morph talk, to that website hognose/morphs.com?
I have not.
It's a crazy website, but it's really nice. And you can go to it and you can basically hit like morphs and then hit like the filter, and then you can just select whatever mutations you want to select. And it's like you could be like, okay, I want like Xanthic and like Conda and like Toffee, and it'll show you all the animals that have those mutations with pictures with who produced them first. It's such a nice website to be able to break down like if you have this crazy thought in your mind of like what might this look like, you could just select those mutations, and if it's been made, it'll pretty much be in there.
Okay.
It,
This is
it's
cool.
it's a
You know,
it's it's a really cool site. I'll
yeah.
send a link to you.
I'm already on it here, and it's already like just the layout is really cool to see.
Yeah.
I'm
But if you
definitely have
go to
to
that
sit there
morph
and.
page and then hit filter, you'll see like a list of the names, and then you can
Mhm.
just like select like albino conda or whatever, and then you'll see like all the different mutations that have been made like with albino conda and like the photos that are up there.
Yeah.
I think it's just really cool. Like, and whenever I was like figuring out what mutations and what stuff, because what I really want is I want all of that stuff to just pass the grandma test
Mhm.
of somebody that doesn't know anything about nothing when it comes to the snakes, and they could walk by at a show or something, see it, and be like, "That's really cool. Like, that's pretty."
Yes.
Like, I want that for like all of my projects. It's just I want it to be visually neat enough to where you're like, man, that's like cool. Like, even if you don't like something about it, like maybe you're like, that's a really cool pattern, that's a really cool color. Like, there's so many different things that are important to different people that they like. You know, everyone has different tastes.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think with that, it's so important where you could just visually see something easily instead of having to sit there and explain to people what's
Yeah.
in an animal, right? Like, well, let
Hmm.
me explain this and that. One thing I wish we did have is more pattern morphs, and we're
Yeah.
just I don't know if it's
Conda, super
because
conda,
yeah,
pretty much.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if we're because we're the hognose pattern is standard, or we just haven't found the right set of pairings to find new genetic morphs.
Yeah, I mean, you have like, you have some stuff, but it's very like, I like the jungle Wuma like look. I
Hmm.
just don't like the name. Like, I don't like that
Hmm.
name. Like, they have a jungle Wuma in ball pythons, and I don't like that name either. Like, it's just weird. But like in corn snakes, you have really cool stuff like the tessera, but there
Hmm.
really isn't like a lot of like pattern mutation things with them, like with a lot of mutations. Like,
Yeah.
even in like ball pythons, you have like some pattern mutations, but like a lot of those same pattern mutations kind of go across the board, right? Like you have like the monsoon in ball pythons, and then you have like the granite in Burmese pythons,
Hmm.
and then you have the batik in blood pythons. Like, they're all very similar genes. Like, they look very similar. Um, so I think it's just a matter of it hasn't like mutated or popped up yet, and we'll eventually probably get more. But it's like also kind of be careful with what you ask for, right? Because it's like, like I have like a RBE like super conda that's het
Hmm.
sable, and it's like she kind of looks like she has like a stripe down her back,
Yeah.
but then it's like, do you really want like a near patternless snake with a stripe down its back? Like, that's kind of the cool thing about Super Conda, though, because you get the stark head markings and then the base body color, which
Hmm.
is readily changeable within like the hognose, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. But like, what could you really like do? Like, the Conda like gives you like kind of the spotting. The Jungle Wuma spots it and pulls it
Hmm.
apart. Like, the only other thing I could really think of is striped, and then like a super granity, like pixeled kind of thing, like the monsoon or like the batik and
Yeah.
like the blood pythons.
Yeah.
But then it's like, would that be like too dirty if like an entire hognose was just spotted? Like, how would that blend together with a lot of these like combinations that also kind of like fuzzy the lines a little bit?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. And I'll bring this picture up because this is very similar to what we're talking about, like maybe something granite type. Let me see. And I don't know if you've seen this one. This one right here.
That's
So
pretty cool looking.
this is a super Arctic Antarctic combo. They went wrong with the name.
Hmm.
You know,
I've seen some like weirdness about like the whole Antarctic, but then you already have an Arctic, so it's like,
it's very confusing. It could be very confusing. But it's a really cool gene, and I've seen pictures of albinos, some snows, and it works very well with stuff. So this I guess this is super Arctic and Arctic. I had messaged this person when I saw this picture asking what it was. So there's crazy pixelation, distortion of pattern there. Which is crazy because usually some super Arctics you get that
The
line
stripe
down the back,
kind
the
of.
stripe
Yeah.
down, yeah. But then you still have like different differentiation of color here. So really cool to see that's working together.
The
So
the
we're
the one that
so
kind of reminds me of is the one that Jeff made a while back, and it was like
mhm,
a super Arctic super conda sable, I think it was.
mhm,
It
mhm,
was like almost black with like a little bit of other stuff.
mhm,
I thought that one looked like really, really cool. Like I thought that had like a really neat look, but I do like
yeah,
the way that looks.
yeah,
But also it's like it's not very like clean. Like the lines aren't crisp. Like it's not
correct,
like HD, So it's
yeah,
like, but it is cool. But
mhm.
like I would be semi concerned like whenever you start changing the colors on it,
What
like
it's gonna look like.
how close are the albino colors going to look together?
Yeah,
Like whenever you do like I think toffee would honestly like toffee or one of those other caramel albino types would look really nice with that
mhm.
because I think you would get like the really light base like creams and then like the really dark like caramel purple kind of like shades within that darker pattern.
Yeah, yeah. Or even like Sable, where it's like the just another darkening gene in there too as
Mhm.
well. Maybe will help out clear things up or tighten up the colors somewhere. But yeah, so always we talked about like genetics that change pattern, and Arctic does change pattern sometimes, even
Yeah.
the single form. As it's just random. That's the only thing,
Yeah.
right? You can't
It's not reliable.
yeah, it's not reliable. It's whatever you get, some crazy pattern stuff like that. And I have some stuff that I've kept, after the last two breedings, last 2 years of breeding, like some Arctics that have some weird pattern and stuff. And I kept them because they're cool to me.
Yeah.
And just something cool to see and to have other genetics that I could work with. We'll see. But another thing too, with you said, with the pattern is line breeding. I'm working some of the reverse stripe, like twin spot tiger stripe stuff into my breedings, and I have was it 2 years now? Two
Like that
two
has
seasons.
the tiger stuff has like tighter saddles, right? So it's like tighter and more,
Yeah,
right?
tighter and
So
full bands across.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Yep.
cool look. Yeah.
Yeah. So which honestly, Jamie JNC Hogs was the only other person like really working that line, and that's where I got my lineage from.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been, talking back and forth with him and stuff like that, where we're gonna try to work something out where, we produce more of that stuff into other morphs and stuff like that. Because right now it's mainly an albino because that's where he concentrated it, producing it
Mhm.
over the years. So it'll be cool to finally start seeing some more in like sables and everything else, some
Mhm.
tiger patterns, some reverse stripe stuff. But again, it's line breeding, so takes years, many animals to get there to be able to really find what we want to, produce and stuff. But yeah, with like your ball python breedings and stuff like that, what's your, you say you like sunset, and I've, from the outside looking in, I've heard all the back and forth between sunset.
Mhm.
There's sunset lovers, and then
Yeah.
there's people that are totally against the sunset, like that they won't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. Where are you working towards that with the sunset? What does
I
your
mean,
vision look like?
my biggest focus there is like sunset ultramel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that would pretty much be like, I mean, not quite like a Mai Tai situation because it's like
Mm-hmm.
sunset is a darker mutation to a degree that
Yeah.
also has like some other tones that aren't found in other projects. And ultramel's a type of just caramel albino type animal. So it creates like a nice little balance of it, I think. But that's probably like one of my favorite projects is the sunset and sunset ultramel, and then after that, it's just adjusting the pattern.
Okay.
Depending on whatever kind of genetics you want to go with, really,
Yeah.
between like the incomplete dominant stuff or other recessive patterns.
Because with the sunset, does it basically does it pixelate the pattern? The sunsets?
Now, the sunsets, I mean, it's kind of a pattern mutation also,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's a color mutation. So it like pretty much gives like a rusty red color in like the background pattern of the animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
So
like my vanilla sunset
mhm.
male. So it's like he's got that rusty red like in between the pattern, and then
Mm-hmm.
his pattern is more of like a yellow, and that's like an adult. Like a baby is way brighter and more of a red color than it is like that like yellowish kind of color.
Yeah.
But overall, though, he's still a pretty cool male.
Yeah. So this guy has vanilla sunset. So he's a vanilla. What's vanilla in ball pythons?
I mean, not quite like an Arctic, but
Yeah.
it's just an enhancer. It's just an
Okay.
enhancer, so it just lightens the base color a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and just does that. And it's like, and it doesn't produce like a blanked out super. So that pairing there could, in theory, produce like a super vanilla sunset. And then I could test them for hypo if I wanted to, which I probably would if I hit any visual sunsets. But
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, and back to like right, like breeding what you really like, what you think is gonna make you happy when you see those little, hatchings coming out the egg and stuff. With the sunset stuff, is there any other genes that that you have in your collection that maybe isn't the most popular? There's some disagreements on them and stuff.
I mean, that's probably like the
The biggest one,
hottest take, yeah.
yeah.
But like I have other stuff that like other people like it.
Mm-hmm.
I also like it. Like I'm a fan of like super hurricane stuff, which really like jumbles up the pattern.
Okay.
Like it creates like a really nice look. I know there's one, if I'll have to like look at my like Instagram to like kind of direct you to where it is. I think
Mm-hmm.
I posted it like not too long ago. Um, let's
Yeah, I can
see.
bring it up and see.
I know I'm just trying to like scroll down and find it, but I don't know if I will. Oh yeah, it's like there. It's like a ways down. It's when she was like a bit younger.
Okay.
Right there in the middle.
This one.
Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah. So
Super
that's
hurricane hypo.
super hurricane hypo.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like the pattern. Like it's really cool, right? And it's like you don't have to like stack a whole lot of stuff on there and
Yeah.
blank out the pattern or clean it up. Like I really like the pixelation. I like how dark it is. Like that's like a hypo, so it also like lightens it up and makes it that bluish color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a cool look. So I actually have that female breeding with my son with that same sunset male that you just seen, because I want to try and add that pattern into the sunset, and then also intensify the colors by bringing in those like rusty reds and colors like that
Yeah.
to just really kind of change it up and just kind of see what I get. I also have like a not a super well known gene, but it's called adder. It's just very connected side patterns.
Okay.
There's not a lot of people that really have it or work with it or do anything with it, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
very unexplored. And so that's kind of my little like, off the beaten path, thing that I kind of want to explore a few things with. And same thing with Rainbow. Like Rainbow's another like unique one. He was in one of my recent pictures as well. He kind of look basically it looks like a banana, but they don't have the same issues as a banana as far as like being sex linked and all that stuff.
Okay.
Um, so they're so and the colors stay the same and they don't spot up. I mean, there's several differences to them, and the color's a little bit more vibrant. So I do see that one being something that's kind of like an underdog, like it's
Mm-hmm.
undervalued it's probably not undervalued because most of them are expensive, but it's underappreciated because not a lot of stuff has been done.
Yeah.
But if you could reliably produce that look that stays that same way or stays that same color as it ages, then because you have so many people that'll go to a reptile show, they'll pick up a banana ball python, and then like a year from then, it's like lost all its color, it's gained a bunch of spots, and it's not the same snake anymore. And
Yeah.
I think like that's one of the bigger benefits to like some of these colubrid species is that they stay the same, if not get better as they age.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
And that I think is a big selling point. Um, Not mostly, but generally to like people that just want to enjoy and keep a cool animal.
Yes.
Like they want to have something that like that they continue to enjoy. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, man, these things they live for a long time. So you have Like we had somebody, and I really appreciate that they got an animal from us when we went to that show that we met at.
Yeah.
Troy, it was either at Troy Shore or it was a week before at the at Bob's show, the Sear show. But it was a guy that came up. He had had a boa for so many years, and it wasn't a boa that we even produced. It was one that I got from a buddy to help him sell that I brought to the show. But nonetheless, this guy had a boa. He had it for like the last 20 something years. He said it passed away recently, and now he wanted a new one. So he, he's getting his new boa, and it's like that dude's going to just enjoy that animal for as long as it lives. He doesn't care about all the politics of like the reptile market. He doesn't care about the values in the reptile market. He just wanted a cool snake that he's going to be able to enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I enjoy the animals I have, but I don't interact with them the same way that I would have when I was like 16, 17, always, giving each one handling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll snatch one up, now, and I'll go hang out on the couch with it for like 10, 15 minutes or something and then put it back, and I'll do that. Like I'll swap out, like I'll like, 1 week I'll grab this one or the next day I'll grab another one. Like every once in a while I do that just because it's kind of enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think people that come to the shows and stuff, like that's what they want. They want like their little companion buddy.
Yeah.
And they don't require as much work as like a dog or a cat. So it's like you really want it to last. You want the colors to last. You want like handleability to be like reliable, which is where the bigger snakes kind of falter. Like sure, you can handle and chill with like a baby Burma or a retic or something, but once they get to about probably like 7 feet, 8 feet, they become a lot more snake to manage.
Yes. Yeah.
And then then they get heavier and thicker. Like, so a ball python is, pretty meaty, but not like super long. The hognose snakes are obviously like way more compact.
Mm-hmm.
And just everybody can enjoy like just these different like sizes, varieties, and everything else, and all the colors and patterns that go along with it.
Yeah, man. I think the variance of, having multiple species and first of all, working with the species and raising it up, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
I added Barron's Racers and Madagascar Giant Hognose. And right now, my favorite right now is the Giant Hognose, just because they are a bigger species, and I'm getting that bigger species interaction, behaviors and stuff that I don't see generally in like the Hognose or even the Barron's Racers. So it's really cool.
Barons get pretty big too. They're just like lanky.
They're just lanky and very like jotty, movements and stuff. Where the Giant Hognose, they'll come up, they're slower movers. They'll like get up, telescope and watch and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see them watch, like me watching them watching me,
Yeah.
So like and seeing that they're actually processing what they're seeing, not just like being flighty or just trying to hide and stuff. So that's been something really cool.
I feel like that's like something that the ball pythons and the hognose are both guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just, I don't know, man. Like ball pythons turn into a ball, hognose pretend to die. Like they're just they don't like trying to figure stuff out. Like a bull snake, like when you hold a bull snake or like a pine snake, like they're looking, they're checking stuff out. They're trying to figure out like what's going on. Even the same thing with like boas. Like boas are the same way. Like they're inquisitive. They're like a little curious. They want to check stuff out. Blood pythons are like in between that. Like they're curious, but at the same time, like you just need to know when they like don't want to be like messed with.
Yeah.
But they're still very handleable. There's a lot of like conceptions about blood pythons as far as like all of their handleability and everything else. Like they're prone to like having attitudes and stuff like that, but a lot of that isn't so much the snake actually having an attitude. It's mostly just you're handling it the wrong way, because they don't grip onto you like a hognose. Like they don't grip onto you at all.
Correct. Yeah.
Like a blood python also does not grip onto you in the slightest. It's not going to hold on to you like a ball python, like a Burmese python, like any of those things. Like they're just going to slide right through your hands. So you need to fully support their body. And I think the hognose are the same way. they need to feel secure when you have them in your hands. And,
Yeah.
the bull snakes are kind of the same. Like they hold on to you a little bit, but they're
Hmm.
also like a much longer snake.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting. You're saying that about the bloods because, right? Like I've heard it too. The misconceptions, like, man, handling a blood it's going to be a pain. It's going to be a lot of work to try to get it to be, tame it down to be able to just grab it and handle it. But that's a really good point where you're talking about like if they feel secure, they're probably going to chill out way quicker.
yeah.
And where maybe people aren't realizing that from the beginning, where you have to, I tell people when they hold hog noses, you have to actively hold them. You have to get some kind of pressure against their body to feel safe. Because the same thing, if you just plop a
They'll
hog
just
nose and hold it like this,
a
yeah, it's like,
worm.
whoa. Yeah, it's like, they start freaking out. It's like, they feel like they're going to fall,
Yeah.
and then they get all squirmy and start flailing. And I've seen people at shows like try to hold one and then get put off like, no, I can't, I can't handle this.
Hmm.
And then I'll grab it and they're like, well, how come it's not doing with you? It's just like, it's just learning to handle, learning the behavior of the animal that you have.
Oh
um
yeah.
and I think that's another great part, like with some of these species like hognose, some colubrids, now me learning about the bloods and stuff, it's actually taking the time to learn and figure out the species other than just having somebody plop you nothing against ball pythons, but somebody had plop you a ball in your hand and you just hold it and you feel good, and it
Yeah.
feels
And then
comfortable there.
they open up and they start
Hmm.
cruising after a bit too. It's just ball pythons just in general are not like a very confident snake.
Hmm.
And I would argue that like a hognose also isn't very confident
Hmm.
because, their first method of defense is to, flail and strike at you like
Yep.
blindly. Like they're going to hit something with as many
Yeah.
times as they're going out there.
Yep.
And then if that doesn't work, then they just act like they died,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's like they're, they're just not very confident. You have
Hmm.
like other snakes that are probably a little too confident. Like I feel like retics are like too confident.
Mm.
Like a retic is like not going to back down like at all. Like
Yeah.
that's also kind of nice about the ball pythons. You need to go in to clean part of the enclosure. You need to take out the water to put in a new one. Like if the ball python's looking froggy, you can just put your hand towards it and it's like, oh God, no. And then
Yeah.
it like
Just
tucks it and like immediately it just goes into hiding and you're like, ah, you're not gonna bite me now.
yeah.
You try and do that with, a blood python, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna
Hmm.
sit there and they're gonna give you a little side eye the whole time, like watching you do what you're doing. But until you like cross that boundary, like they're not gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
Like my bigger blood pythons, it's like I could just reach right in and like take them out of the cage, like no problem at all. It's just whenever they're younger, they just don't understand that like you're not trying to eat them.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's just, and a
Yeah.
lot of people keep some of the stuff way too hot.
Mm.
So sometimes it's a matter of like just husbandry. It's like I think in general we all, well, in the past I think people in general have kept reptiles way too hot. You think they need like a friggin' 100-degree basking spot or something. It's like
Yeah.
no, they'll be good with like mid 80s, like most of
Hmm.
them mid 80s,
Hmm.
like high 70s, ambient temperature, low 80s ambient temperature, somewhere around there, and a hot spot to digest food. It's like
Yeah.
they don't really need like crazy high temperatures.
Yeah.
And if you're hot, like you'll be a little cranky too.
For sure.
Middle of Daytona out in the fire sun, you might not be
Yeah.
too happy unless you got something to help you cool down.
That's right, man. Yeah. And with your like bigger species, like the bloods, the berms and stuff like that, how are you keeping them? Are you doing racks? Are you doing enclosures with them?
Right now, well, so all my bloods are in like the 8016 like ARS rack, and
Okay.
then I have a Freedom Breeder rack for the Burmese Pythons because they're big, but they're not like that big. Like my
Hmm.
biggest female, she's like, I don't know, 12, 13 feet, something like that. Like she's got a little bit of thickness to her, but I don't overfeed them. Like she gets one rabbit a month. Like,
Okay.
it's like a big meal will last them for a while. Like you don't have
Yeah.
to feed the big ones like very often at all. Um, what I would like to eventually do, I remember like back in the like early 2000s, and the company's still around, but it's like Custom Cages. It's the
Mhm.
company that used to like own Vision, I think, also or something.
Mhm.
But they make like basically zoo style like enclosures where it's just like a big open enclosure. Like what I would like to do is eventually just get like one big one of those that's like, I don't know, like 10 feet by 4 feet and like to the ceiling basically or something like that. And then each week I would basically just rotate a different snake in there and
Oh,
just
cool.
let
Yeah.
them cruise and chill and do what they want to
Yeah.
do. And it's like, and I wouldn't do it like right after feeding or anything. It would be like, hey, like you just went to the bathroom, like you're clean. Like we're gonna put you in like the big enclosure with like a big like pond,
Mhm.
and it just be like a nice area for them to hang out, and then also for me to just enjoy the view,
Mhm.
because it's like if you give them the opportunity to go up into a big old like fake tree or something, they'll probably do it occasionally. It's like just give them a little bit of something
Yeah.
to kind of do and hang out and stuff like that. Like, but right now, I mean, they're fine. Like in the rack, I still pull them out. Like I don't have a lot of them. I only have a handful. But I still pull them out. I let them cruise around for a little bit. I'll just put them down on like the floor in the snake room, and they'll just, kind of cruise, let them chill out a
That's
little, and
cool.
then put them back in. So
Yeah. See, that's another cool, another part of like bigger species too. Like, you can't just grab a hog nose and put it down. Like, you're gonna lose it. You know.
yeah, yeah, you
um.
ain't never seeing that sucker
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
hide under
So
a dime or something.
yeah. So like that's thinking about that too is like being able to have bigger species and actually let them roam a little bit and seeing them. That's pretty cool to hear. Um. With the berms and stuff, once you start producing, how are you gonna, you know, thinking about like who you're gonna go to? Like, are you gonna be very picky on who you let these babies go to and stuff? Have you thought about that?
Well, so I mean, we produced some last year.
Okay.
We didn't produce many. Like we
Mm-hmm.
kind of got botched odds. A lot of eggs just went bad or whatever, and it just kind of is what it is. The majority of the ones that I'm making are, well, the ones that I will be making, with this upcoming pairing are fairly high end ones. So I
Okay.
feel like I'm not just going to have like, randos off the street try and get it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you can only be as selective as you are with your information. It's like
Correct. Correct.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to like have someone fill out like a piece of paperwork, giving me all their information, because as soon as that happens, they'll just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But just generally get a feel for it.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I think most people that go on to say Morph Market or something, they have a profile, they have their Instagram or something linked to that. You can go to the Instagram and just kind of see what they're about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The two that I sold this year, well, I sold three. One of them went to a buddy of mine in Illinois, and that's his first berm, but he loves her. She's awesome. His kids
Yeah.
love her. Like he's got a bunch of other ball pythons and stuff. So a Burmese python is just a much larger ball python, is basically what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other two, one of them, like they had, well, both of them had like other berms. Like one of them sent like a couple of pictures, like, oh, like this is really cool because we already have this one. And it's like, so I just got like a good feeling from them. If I get the feeling that they're going to be one of those people that just goes around like out in public with a snake around their shoulders trying to get like a reaction out of people, I 100% dislike you as a person, and I would not actively sell an animal to you if I know that.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Because I just don't, that doesn't do anything good for the hobby.
Not at all.
Like
At all.
none of
No.
that stuff does anything good for the hobby. So I will be as selective as I can be while also being realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think that I don't think that someone that's young could get a berm specifically and not have a reasonable keeping experience and do right by it.
Yeah.
I think that there's a higher likelihood of someone that's young getting a retic and having a bad experience. But that's
Mm-hmm.
just like my bias to like berms being better than retics.
Mm-hmm.
Berms are just far less active. They don't do the pushing thing. Males don't get like aggressive during breeding season. Like there's a bunch of reasons why I am not a big fan of like retics. And a retic bite, like they will slice you if you get bit by a retic. like a burn bite will still hurt, but it's not going to slice you open
Yeah.
the same way like a retic bite does. But the Burms are, I mean, they're just super chill. Like they don't care. Like they just get that like kind of like I don't know, like one of those like golden retriever kind of like things, or one of those like what, like Alaskan Malamutes or something, where they're just such a big dog that they're just like they just don't do anything, you know.
Yeah.
Like they just hang out. So
That's cool. Yeah, and you know, and it's interesting because like I've never interacted with a berm. By the time I got into like really got into reptiles, into the whole like world of you know, deeply into reptiles, they were already, you know, banned here in Florida. So I haven't had a chance to interact with a berm. It's definitely on the bucket list. Where are you located, by the way?
I'm in Maryland.
In Maryland. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you know, so that's interesting to hear like your experiences with them. And I've heard that same situation. What you're explaining, that berms are more manageable than retics are.
Yeah,
Um,
they're slower.
mm-hmm.
Like when they start cruising, like they're not gonna fly through your hands. Like they're just
Gotcha.
they're just
Easily
slow.
pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They're not going anywhere in a hurry.
That's cool. That's cool, man. So, like you said, you know, most of your stuff, you're high end, probably to other, maybe other breeders or somebody that's already keeping berms and knows what they're looking for. You know, if you had that, because you had the experience, right? You said when you were in high school, you got a berm, and then you got sold a berm with probably without no knowledge or any
Oh no, I
information
had
being
plenty of
asked.
knowledge. It was just a stupid situation.
Well,
It was
yeah.
stupid.
So the person that did you buy it from a breeder or a pet shop?
Well, so that's the problem, right? So
Yeah.
at the time, and I actually thought about restarting a subscription now because I think it would just be fun to have.
Mm-hmm.
But like Reptiles magazine, like they still come out with like a paper issue,
Mm-hmm.
but back then they had paper issues and they put out stuff on like blood pythons. I thought Sumatran blood pythons and stuff looked super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like they got like this mean little head structure. They look like a leaf. They're like big, but they're like short. Like, you know, then they're just a cool snake. I mean, that's why I have them now, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I wanted to get a blood python, and I went to the local reptile shop, and I had just won. Like my parents, they would always get me like scratch off tickets for for a birthday. Like that's like a thing that we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whenever you turn however old you are, that's how many dollars in scratch off tickets you get. So I got like $17 in scratch off tickets and ended up winning like a couple $100.
That's
And the
cool.
first thing I want to do is go get a damn snake, you know? And I wanted a blood python, and they had blood pythons at Triple L Reptile there in Escondido, California. And the chick that was there didn't want me to hold the blood python because it was bitey.
Mm.
So instead, she let me hold the female albino Burmese python. And that's what I ended up leaving with, was that, because it was cool, it's beautiful, super handleable, not bitey at all. I mean, everything about them. I mean, they eat frozen food. Like, I mean, they're a good pet snake.
Mm-hmm.
They just get bigger. And
Correct.
the only reason why I got rid of her is because I was going to be going into the Marines, and it was, a little bit more than my parents had like signed up for,
Mm-hmm.
like I had a couple of boas at the time. I think I had like 9 or so boas, so they were already taking care of those. They didn't need like a 6-7 foot like Burmese python too.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that got her from me was an older guy, and he kept in touch with me for probably the next like 6 or 7 years through like email, giving me like email updates of her. And then just one day she just ended up passing away.
Damn.
So
yeah. And what I mean that by the inexperience, it was on the person selling you the animal. It
was just ridiculous that they wouldn't let me
Yeah.
hold a blood python. But it's also ridiculous that they did sell a Burmese python to a 17-year-old
Correct.
that was able to convince their mother that they're not going to get that big. Trust me. Like it's ridiculous that
Yeah.
like happened, but like I don't think that it's completely. Here's the thing: if you're a responsible pet keeper,
Mm-hmm.
responsible animal keeper, you could very easily, not that everybody should, but you could easily just get a Burmese python and that be your first and only snake.
Mm.
Like you could have that thing forever. Like it's not like one day it's 18 inches long and then the next day it's 18 feet.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's not how it works. Like
Yeah.
the one that I'm talking about breeding like this year, like she's not massive. She's maybe like 8 or 9 feet at best, maybe,
Okay.
and like
Yeah.
and probably like this big around.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like 5 years old, 6 years. Like you don't like you just don't have to power feed them. Feed them a appropriate sized meal every 2 or 3 weeks. Like they're not going to be
Yeah.
that massive in the wild, and it takes a long time for them to get that big. So I don't know. I think, you can grow with it. Same thing with like boas and stuff. Like all of these animals like that do get a little bit bigger, you can start off with a baby version and grow with it as it ages. You just have to be a responsible pet keeper and understand, what the feeding requirements are and what the caging requirements and stuff like that are as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, have the prior knowledge that it is going to get bigger. It is going to need you're going to need to have a bigger setup for it and stuff like that. And that's one thing. Back to shows because you get to talk to a lot of like newcomers. People are just stepping into the
yeah,
reptile
they don't know
world.
nothing about nothing sometimes.
Nothing, and I get a lot of parents. I'm going to get my child. We're here today to buy a bearded dragon, and I always tell people, great pet. They're easy to maintain. They're easy to handle and stuff for the most part. I always tell people just know that proper, enclosure for as it gets older is going to be, pretty large. So have like always keep that in mind that eventually you're going to need to have a larger enclosure to properly keep that animal.
Like if
And
you want to
then
do it the right way. Yeah.
correct. And then I'll get people. It's like, oh, I just can't keep it like in a 20-gallon. I go, no,
That thing's the length of a 20-gallon, buddy.
Yeah. And a lot of people will think that that's the most they need to get it for a bearded dragon, and that's one of the most common sold reptiles. I would say at that families pick up because it's a cool little lizard. It's not expensive for the most part. But yeah, I think that knowledge and that foresight goes a long way when somebody's getting into a reptile.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Same thing. Like I was telling my Barons racer, my female, I'm in that point where she's old enough and the size enough where I want to get like a semi-arboreal setup for her. And it's going to take up a good amount of space, so that's another species like you're talking about yourself with the hognose and other species that you have is I'm not going to get the same amount of Barons racers that have hognose because I want to be able to give it a, I'm planning to do a 4x2x2 enclosure for it. Having a full wall of those, it's going to take up a lot of space.
Yeah. It's like that because you got yours from that dude, Palm Beach Colubrids, right? You were saying?
No, I got two different breeders. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, because like the way I think we talked about just him with how he had his setup or something, but
Yep.
his stuff is really cool, and I think he keeps his in like 3x3x2, and he keeps them as like a litlittle 1.2 or 1.1 or something, and it's like for those other species, like that's all I want. Like I want to have two 3x3x2 enclosures, and one of them I want to have like a pair or a trio of Barons racers, and then the other one I want to have like probably like 2.2, 2.3 garter snakes, like California red-sided garters.
Yeah.
Like because they're just pretty, they're social, they'll bask, feed them friggin' earthworms and stuff. Like it's stupid. Like it's just such a different animal that you can really enjoy, and like they're not going to be like secluded. Like I think like those, because I had a Barons racer once upon a time, which I also regret getting rid of. It was a beautiful green one. But it's like those things, like I don't think they want to be interacted with, but like they're social, they're curious, they want to just be out there.
Yeah.
These ball pythons, they don't care. They'd love to just never see you again unless it's food day. The hognose, I feel, are kind of the same way. Like they seem like pretty curious and adventurous to a degree, but like at the same time, like you're not going to see them climbing up a bunch of sticks in like a 3x3 enclosure.
No.
Like the height is only so you don't have to like get down on the ground and look in there.
Yeah.
But it's like realistically, it's just cool to like be able to have stuff that you can look at, because as efficient as these like rack systems are, it does take away the enjoyment factor of like viewing the animal. And it's like whenever my hognose stuff does grow up and become like adult sized, I would like to do like the same ARS racks that I have,
Yeah.
but instead have the clear tubs
Yep.
so I
Yeah.
can actually see them, so they can actually get that diurnal cycle of like the lights and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a thing that I want to do. And the same thing for like my bull snakes. Like I would like to put those in like 4x2 enclosures.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even if it's, cause I'm not going to have many of them. Like
Yeah.
I want to have like five is what I probably want to have. I want to have 1.2 for my like ghost project. And then I want to just have 1.1 for my like high color albino project. Eventually, would I maybe switch out a male or something like that? Maybe like, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
keep it very limited to like just producing, 2 or 3 clutches of that stuff a year. And that's only for just, increasing the quality
Yeah.
of the stuff that I have myself and being able to visually like enjoy and see them versus them being tucked away in a rack. Like for the ball pythons, it doesn't matter. They love it, like
Yep.
they don't want to be seen. They want to be in a dark hole. They want to be left alone. But for these, other colubrids, like I want them to be in an enclosure where they got a bunch of stuff to climb around, where they got stuff to check out. They
Yeah.
got basking lights that don't provide any heat, but they like look nice and they can just sit there and just like shimmer in the sunlight, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like just enjoyment factor, for me is to basically it's a reptile fish tank more or less.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I think that's another great part of expanding the collection to other species, where you start keeping different as well. You start learning different ways to maintain these animals instead of just a rack system, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
right, I have rack systems for the hognose as well. I have my giants right now in a rack, but eventually, same thing. I'm gonna get it, probably put them in a trio or probably a 2.2, large enclosure and stuff with those. And just trying to give him, those are those active animals that you want to be able to see and be able to a pleasure just to sit in your reptile room and just watch, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. With with the hognose and the you're in a little bit of a unique situation because you have the bloods, you have the berms, you have hognose and ball pythons, and within all these species, there's also little groups, right? Small little communities that you dive into and stuff like that. How do you keep with all these different communities, groups, and stuff like that? How do you keep a balance with all that? Especially with you having to breed eventually these species, you have to be able to, I guess, make those connections, right?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. And partially, I don't want to say like I don't care either because
Mm-hmm.
like I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like with the ball python stuff, I feel like that's easy just because like so many people search out like ball
Ball
python
python.
stuff online. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and I have YouTube videos that I've been slacking on. I was posting regularly on Instagram, which I've been slacking on, but I just got kind of burnt out with the whole like socialization of everything
Yeah.
because I care about the animals. Like that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the animals. I don't really enjoy the people too much. Like they're fine,
Yeah.
but like the animals, like I don't care to be like some influencer type or like anything like that. Like I don't want that like in the slightest. I just want to make really cool snakes. And I think if you just show those things, the people that are attracted to those things are going to come. When I start producing more like hognose stuff, I'll probably show some of that stuff and I'll
Mm-hmm.
show it beforehand too. I'm just in a slump right now of just like not wanting to really deal with social media.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like I think Facebook is probably the best for it. I haven't shared anything in like any hognose groups aside from like replying to stuff when people like ask about different places to like maybe get a hognose
Yeah. Yeah.
or like how to ship this or that because that's the same for anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Really. Um, but it's like just being a part of like groups on Facebook for like say the ball pythons or like the hognose or there's like a couple of berm groups that I'm in that I'll post stuff in. There's like the very big, very like niche ones, not where it's like pet keepers, but like the people that are like in it kind of thing. Like there's a
Yeah.
couple like blood python and short tail groups, and it's like every month they'll have like a photo contest. So it's like
That's cool.
you can put a photo in there, and it's like, and then people get to see it and familiarize you with like that animal, you know. And it's like also just like the people that you've like purchased certain things from,
Mm-hmm.
you can build friendships or relationships with those people within those groups too, you know. Like so that plays a little bit of a factor. For the ball python stuff, like I'm in like two like different patreons that have like that have discords,
Okay.
and those are pretty active, so there's a lot of communication and a lot of stuff like that going on in there. I like lurk very loosely in like the JMG group,
Mm-hmm.
the JMG like discord for like the hognose.
Mm-hmm.
um it's fine. Some of it's not really for me, so I just kind of mind my own business and I just like observe, you know.
Yeah.
But like I feel like I could post pictures in there and share that stuff in there. And would some of those people potentially be like a customer in the future? Maybe. But like also it's one of those things like, you know, snake discovery, right? They don't need to do none of that stuff. And by no stretch am I a fraction of the snake discovery, like, you know,
Yeah.
percentage of viewers by any means. But like I'm not going to be producing enough stuff where I need to be slanging like 500 of these things a year. You know, like I'm going to have enough to where whenever I show them, the people will see it and be like, I resonate with that look. I like that animal. Like that's beautiful. You know, we're planning on doing more shows. You know, as far as like doing like Bob Vu's shows there in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be doing the All American Plant and Reptile Expos, the ones that they do in North Carolina. This year, we're not going to do the Nashville one, but maybe next year we would do the Nashville one. And in reality, I think between those like 5 shows and doing general social media stuff, like that should be enough to where it shows like the limited production that we do within all of these different species to move those things. Because the blood pythons, like I don't want to have a million of those. I don't want to have a million, you know, bull snakes. I don't want to have, you know, I don't want to have 200 hognose,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like breeders. You know, I want to keep it very small. Like, so I'm not gonna, you know, be making enough to where it's, you know, it's just gonna be like I want it fun. I want to keep it
Yeah.
fun and
Yeah.
enjoyable. And I think a lot of that just comes to, you know, just the size of the collection, I guess, and the amount of stuff you produce. But groups, Instagram, just posting pictures. Like I think
Yeah.
the people that like that stuff, and I went and followed like quite a few different like hognose people. I mean, that's how I came across like your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Was I was just looking up like hognose stuff, and I came across your stuff. I came across like Jermaine, you know,
Mm-hmm.
shovel nose hogs. Like I came across a lot of people's stuff that just showed the different mutations, showed how they were doing stuff. And then it's like even just getting involved in those in the comment sections on those, there's
Yeah.
other people that are also in those things regularly. So it's I feel like people overcomplicate getting into like niches of like reptile,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So
Yeah. It's almost like organically letting it happen, right? And I think where your base is ball pythons, and you have, you know, either customers, friends that know you because of the ball pythons, or you've had those, you know, connections to the ball pythons. Eventually, that also helps out, because if that person that has bought an animal from you is happy with it, and you know they're getting hog nose like you said, you post it on your Instagram, stuff like that. Most likely, if they have a connection with you, they have an established relationship, they more easily just come back to you. It's like, oh, you have hognose now. I've been looking to hognose. Let me get one from you, right?
oh yeah.
So that, or just organically letting all that stuff happen. And I agree, man. It's funny because like I um I didn't start posting like my other species until this year. Even I had them the prior year and stuff like that. It was mainly hognose, and now that they're a little bigger, I'm more comfortable with them, I started posting them as well. But it's very sporadically still as well. Until like I think once I figure out the breedings and having all that stuff and set them up in the enclosure that I want, then I'll probably start throwing that stuff more out on my social media doing YouTube with it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was looking at your YouTube as well. I really like all like the tutorial stuff that you were doing, like the quick, like the picture, the camera, if you need it or if you want it. Where did that come from? How did you, push to do that?
What, like a video just about that stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
It goes back to like some of like the stuff where I think it's just like unnecessary, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I think so many times people put so much emphasis on like gear and things like that, and it's like you
Mm-hmm.
don't realize like how easy it is to do like a good job, not like
Yeah,
amazing, but you could
yeah.
do an amazing job with a cell phone, but you can do a
Mm-hmm.
good enough job. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those videos that I've shot from the recent shows, I've just done them using my phone.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just because it's like it's such a convenient thing. And it's also to just kind of show that, like, yeah, I have like a $3,000 like DSLR camera with like good lenses. But
Mm-hmm.
guess what? The majority of people that are on YouTube looking at your snake video, they're not gonna care.
Yeah.
You blind them with like the shiny lights and all this other stuff. Like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like you might have suckered a few people in, but like you don't need that to show your passion for your animals. Now, you do have to take the time for like pre-production. You do have
Mm-hmm.
to take the time to set up a shot. You have to take the time to understand like how you're going to do this or that, like your brumation video that you did with your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you had to plan that out of like, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this.
Yep.
Like, I want you guys to do this part, I want you guys to do this part.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of pre-production
Yeah.
isn't hard. You
Yep.
just need to put time and energy into doing that. And then you can use your cell phone to like record any of this stuff and you will get good
Yep.
enough. The people that are watching, they're not going to care
Yep.
if you show the animals well, if you like articulate, like if they leave either feeling entertained, informed, or just in general, like that was a pretty animal,
Yeah.
whatever that feeling is of like, I like seeing that. That was nice. Like
Yeah.
if they leave not feeling like they wasted their time and they're like confused, like what were they talking about? Like they're gonna get a positive experience out of that. And it's like, I don't think that you need to put thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars. Like you could get by with a very inexpensive DSLR with a little flippy screen and a decent lens and spend like 1,000 to 1,500 bucks and get really good quality stuff. But you could also use the same phone that's in your pocket. You just have to like do things differently. Like most of the like I mean the majority of like the reels and stuff that I take, I do that with my like main camera,
Mm-hmm.
but that's mostly because I like the focal length that is. That's different
Mm-hmm.
than like the phone. But
Yeah.
like at the same time, if I use the phone, I will use like the 2 times zoom to like zoom it in, which compresses the background, and then I make sure that I'm a distance away from something behind me so that it creates that like natural fall off, and it's not like a digital fall off, it's a
Mm-hmm.
natural fall off because this is so much closer than the background. So it's just a little bit of pre-preparation, and that look also goes to like and like make the brand look better or whatever, because it like just creates like a different, like you're not just like haphazardly taking a picture of something like a 60-year-old would take a picture of their dinner at like IHOP or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're putting a little bit more something into it.
Yep.
And it's like you can tell when a little bit of effort goes a long way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it just it just gives it like a little bit more extra something. And it's like that level of care transcends from taking a picture of that animal to post on your social media to like how you take care of the animals like within your collection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not like always true. Like some people could take horrific pictures and still take care of their stuff well, but they're just in too much of a rush. Like you're not buying the animal, you're buying a picture of the animal. Like
Correct. Correct.
so it's like you should put your best foot out there forward as far as like showcasing that beautiful animal,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, look at all the stuff that for better or for worse goes like viral on like Instagram, right? With like these cute little animals, like any kind of animal, cute little raccoons or hedgehogs or like any of that stuff. it's just a cute video of like a pretty animal. And sometimes like there's people, I don't know if you've seen this side of it, but where they got like the little table setups and a fat little hedgehog that's eating like mealworms or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
crazy. Like you could just make an entire Instagram of a friggin' hedgehog mukbang of different insects, and you'd probably like skyrocket. Like
Yeah.
it's stupid, like some of the stuff, but like just a little bit of thought goes a long way into like putting those animals out there like the best way possible to broaden the viewership and the enjoyment of the animals that we all like really enjoy.
Yeah, man. And you know what? And you know, like you said, like the pre-production, the little bit of extra time you take to figure out angles or setups and stuff like that, goes a long way. You know, and for me, it was a learning curve. But everything that I shot and I've put on YouTube, at least pre-recorded stuff, everything's on my phone. All the pictures I post on my social media and stuff is through my phone. And I have been battling that. I'm getting to that point where like I'm battling that teeter totter. It's like, do I go and spend the extra money on a DSLR or a higher end camera to try to next level it, especially for the pictures? And that's one thing that when I first came across your social media and stuff like that was the pictures that you had, very clear, very good colors and stuff like that. So if somebody's trying to reach that clearness, that focus of pictures, do you recommend the camera?
I mean, I like Sony more personally.
Mm-hmm.
That's just personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my like camera that I prefer. Like right now, I have a Sony A7C II. I got rid of that, or I got that one from having an FX3 or FX30, which was more of like a cinema camera, which was
Mm-hmm.
fine, but like the build of that camera was just really big and kind of blocky, which I did like. But what I wanted was something like a little bit sleeker and kind of like retro-y looking. And that was mostly just like a personal preference. And I wanted more photo capabilities versus primarily video
Yeah.
capabilities because
Yeah.
I do want to be able to have this camera so whenever like my fiance and I go on trips or we go do something, I can use it for just like fun general stuff.
Yeah.
But the lens that I'm using is still the same exact lens. Like I would say for anybody that's trying to get into like the camera stuff to look into the ZVE10, like the Sony ZVE10.
Mm-hmm.
There's a version 2 that came out, but they're like between like 500 and like $750 for that camera.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lens that I use is the 18 to 50 millimeter macro Sigma lens. And I always use it, well, I most of the time use it at 50 millimeters because that's the compression, that's a tighter shot. And it has like a really close like focusing distance. So it's like for
Gotcha.
these little snakes, you can get like all the scale detail and everything else.
Yeah.
But you could get the same thing with the phone,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to have the same controls as far as like exposure and everything else. And it's like, and that's another thing that you just take a little bit of time and learn and understand. And you go from, you just put it into manual, you make it look pretty, and you go with that. Like it has like a live view, so you see exactly what it's going to look like. And then it's just a matter of figuring out like other stuff like editing and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's just a learning curve. It's just taking the time and energy to do it. But it's like the quality is definitely better,
Mm-hmm.
but by how much better? Now, if you're talking about like photos for like your morph market and stuff like that, I do think that those results are going to be better than using a cell phone. Like
Yeah.
I'm not using my cell phone to post any pictures for sale on there because I can't control white balance for photos on my phone. Like, but you can control those same things on like a DSLR camera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem with a lot of people's images and videos is that they're not controlling their white balance. So like in one scene, it'll go from one thing and then another, it'll go to like a whole other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like earlier, like whenever you like stood up and did something with the camera, it immediately brightened and then it immediately darkened because
Yep.
your camera was like freaking out. It's like, what are we doing? We need to match
Yeah.
these tones. And
Yeah.
it's like, if you're using like a real camera, a camera that you can adjust settings and stuff on, you're not going to deal with that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you see, and I think that's where I was teetering. Where do I try to find a multi-use camera, video and pictures,
Well, that's what like the ZVE10, like
Okay.
for a while, like I was using the ZVE10. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain things that I didn't like about it, and it's really like stupid stuff. Like it's like if you're holding like the camera, it's like the ZVE10 has like a back wheel which you can adjust certain things on, and then it has another wheel that goes like left to right you can adjust stuff on. All the other Sony cameras that I had before that, they were full frame, like more expensive cameras like the one I have now. And they also had a front wheel. So that front wheel adjusted like the aperture, the back wheel adjusted the
Mm-hmm.
shutter speed, and the other one adjusted the ISO. So I did not like on that one that I had to I had to push another button to adjust one of those settings. So it was
Gotcha.
like a very minuscule thing that I didn't like. But for like the general person getting into like messing with a camera, like that is the perfect I mean, that's the camera that I used when I made that video on doing the photos. I
Okay.
literally like bought one again and then I like returned it so that way I could like make that video. A little shifty of me, but
Hey. Yeah.
well the problem was is I had just sold the ZVE10 that I did have to a buddy of mine to upgrade. And so like I just sent it out and then I was like gonna work on that video. I was like, I should have kept it for like another week,
Yeah.
but whatever. So but
No,
it's
cool.
still a good camera. Like it still is like a good camera. It's small, it's compact. It's a good one for like if you like that 18 to 50 is like perfect too because on 18 millimeters, it's not like a huge camera. Like if you wanted to go out and do family stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's perfect for taking pictures and videos and everything else. Stabilization isn't great, but you're not going to be walking around and doing all that stuff for it.
Yeah.
If you wanted
Yeah.
something for that, I would actually use the camera that I'm using right now, which is my little Osmo Pocket 3, which on my video about doing videos, I showed that one. And that's the one that I would probably recommend for most people. It's just the focal range or the focal distance is a little peculiar, but you have like close focusing abilities with that
Mm-hmm.
too. So if I was
I
showing a
see that.
snake,
Yeah.
I could easily do that. And yeah, you have a little bit of focus breathing, but it's like not much.
No,
But you
but the
could
clearance is a
but
big
it's yeah,
difference.
it's like
Yeah.
insanely clear. Like you can get like the nicest little details
Mm-hmm.
of a snake if you held that up there,
Mm-hmm.
which is, kind of the problem. You also have this little baby screen you're working with. So got to pick what you want to pick. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's still it would still work just fine though.
Yeah.
But that's like for like whenever I've done stuff at like the shows, I'll bring that to record like the walking and talking part because it connects
Mm-hmm.
to a mic really easy. It's just really easy to use and it's not very big. Like that's why it's so much easier to carry that around versus like this big honking camera.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you don't need that if you're like just starting out. Like if you progress up,
Yeah.
that's when you're like,
Yep.
okay, I've reached my limitations of what I can do with this phone and
Mm-hmm.
there's other things that I want to dabble with and I need something better,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I agree, and I think that's where like you go back. I go back and I watch the first video I ever did,
Oh, they probably
and
sucked.
it was it's
They're
crazy,
bad.
and it's not that like if I think I've only upgraded my phone once,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like you said, it was just different setting, different lighting and stuff like that I've learned now, and different editing that I've learned now towards it, where it's wild to see. And now, I've outgrown the phone, but the video stuff, I still like the phone. I think it's easy, quick, and easy to go.
Well, I talked about it in one of the videos there, but there's an app called DaVinci,
Mm-hmm,
or not DaVinci. That's what I use to edit my stuff in.
mm,
But it's called Black Magic, and it's
okay.
like that Black Magic app on your phone. You can adjust all your stuff. Like you can adjust your white balance, you can adjust your shutter speed, you can adjust all that stuff, so
Mm-hmm,
you can have the exact picture you want and lock it in.
mm,
So it's like my phone case is actually like a phone case by a company called Polar Pro.
mm-hmm,
So it has like a little filter attachment, so I can slide a filter onto here. So that way I can get like the shutter speed that I want. It's all a bunch of technical stuff.
yeah.
But like you can still do all those same things and adjust to have manual settings on your phone, just the same as you would on like a regular camera. It's
Mm-hmm,
just a much bigger sensor in like a regular camera. Like you
yeah.
get certain features and everything else, but it's like again, you always have this on your person. So
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I think, like I said, the biggest thing for me is upgrading picture taking capabilities, and for like the morph market stuff, where I wanted to get to the next level. But yeah, man, I don't think there's no
Hognose are so hard to take a
they
damn
are,
picture
man.
of.
They are.
They're just so little and jumpy, and it's just
Yeah.
like, dude, just chill out.
Yep.
Like a ball python is perfect. They're
Yeah.
the best snake to take a picture of.
Yeah.
They sit there. Sometimes you gotta peel them apart like they're like the friggin' sword in the stone. But
Hmm.
like once you get them there, you just flatten them out a little bit. You get like a couple, like 3 pictures: headshot, full body shot, and then like an off angle kind of tail
Yep.
pattern shot. Like
Yep.
that's all you need. And it's
Yep.
like for a hognose though, man, that little bastard is going to be doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's like, come on, man, just chill out for a second. Let me just.
Yeah. With the hognose, I take at least 10 pictures to try to get 3 or 4 minimum.
So another benefit to like having like the camera would be if you set that up, and the reason why I like Sony so much is the autofocus.
Mm.
But if you were to set that camera up on a tripod,
Mm-hmm.
get that angle that you want, so you're getting that like 3/4 shot looking down on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just set it up on a tripod, hit record, and then just move the snake around to where you want it, and just be recording that whole time. And then afterwards, just take a screenshot or like a print screen or whatever of it, and there you go. And then change your angle so you get your little flat like head on shot.
Mm-hmm.
Change your other angle so you get a different look of the body, and just keep it on a tripod and just hit record and move the snake where you need it, and then just cut that out and save it. That's what I did for my Burmese Python photos that I took. I didn't take pictures of those. Those bastards move around a lot too. They're just cruising. They're checking stuff out. So I just took screenshots of while I was handling them, and I just froze that frame. I took a screen grab of it, and that's the picture I used. So
that's cool. Now that's a great tip too. And with with the camera as well, right? Like the camera can, I guess, record in higher quality as well, so you can
for the picture part. It's if you're doing it to take pictures of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's slightly harder, only because if you're doing it and you want like the cleanest image you want, you're going to want a higher like frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're wanting to be accurate, most filming should be done with like a specific shutter rule. Like if you're filming in like 24 frames per second, you want 50 of a 1/50th of a second shutter speed. So it's all this weird technical stuff.
Okay.
But if you're wanting to take a screen grab of it, you're going to want to record like in like 120 frames per second or something higher, because that means like whenever you're going from frame to frame to frame, it's not going to be blurry.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why you record in like a 30 or 6, like a 24 frame per second or like a 30 frame per second,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of shutter rule is because you want like natural motion blur.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do this, my hand is a little bit blurry. If my shutter speed was like really high, it would be kind of like choppy. But that's so you can like freeze it and get like a good quality image of that spot. So it complicates it like a little. But again, for the general people that are just flipping through Morph Market or flipping through Instagram, they're not going to know and they're not going to care. That's just me that like, that's the way this stupid brain works when I think about that stuff. It's like, no, it needs to be like this and the formula and everything else. And it's like, it's too excessive. And that's why I push so much that like you can do just fine with a phone, because most people aren't going to care. Most people don't know anything about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Take time into like your preparations and like your background and your setup and stuff like that. Like that's kind of what I'm waiting on with like the hognose, to like take more pictures. I kind of want to build out like a nice little naturalistic kind of scene to like just kind of plop them down in and get like cool photos or videos, like as if they're like crawling through the foliage of like who knows where, like I want to do stuff like that with them, because I feel like that shows off their beauty so much more than just a blank background.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think that'll be a cool setup to do. And you don't see many people doing it either. Everybody's doing the full white, full black backgrounds, that the general
it's clean. It looks professional,
Yeah.
like for all my Morph Market pictures, that's what it is. I have like a white, I have like a white plastic thing that I can very easily clean and wipe down, and I can just plop an animal down on it. I have like decent lighting. I do that. I take my picture. I adjust it in Lightroom to like make the background completely white.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a very clean look.
Yep.
But I do realize that like whenever I start having like the hog nose and stuff, like they're just going to be way too mobile. They're going to be way too active.
Yeah.
Like the bull snakes are going to be way too active. Like I know a lot of people just take pictures of them in the deli cup to
Mm-hmm.
like contain the beast. And
Yeah.
it's like, I might have to resort to that, but I'm going to try not to resort to that
Yeah.
because I do want like, I want like an Apple store feel to like my morph market. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want that just very clean, very bright, very vibrant. Like you're seeing the animal for like what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Instagram stuff or even like the YouTube stuff would be more so where I would like put more effort into like a unique background with like a little bit more character and stuff like that. And same thing, like whenever I eventually get those garter snakes, like having them in like a fully decked out enclosure with a background with like all that stuff, like that's what I want just because of enjoyment and taking pictures of like a fluorescent blue and red snake in like a,
Yeah.
green, like, it's going to be a bunch of fake plants, but it's going to be some plants and some foliage and some vines and some little hiding places and stuff like that. It'll just be like fun to like be able to see.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just taking pictures and that, it's just going to look prettier.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah,
lot of that
man.
stuff that does well on like Instagram too. It's like, naturalistic backgrounds, like stuff like that. Like it looks
Yeah.
more pleasing.
It
And
does.
it's like,
Yeah.
and you're not going to get those people that are going to come in and be like, oh, how dare you keep them in like the racks? And it's like, they don't know anything about anything. But they just, they feel that it's wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, they enjoy it, man. I seen something recently that said snakes sleep like 19 hours a day or some crazy thing. And it's just like, God dang, like that's
I believe
crazy.
it. I
Like they're
believe it.
just
Yeah, man.
sleeping.
Yeah.
They wake up, they get a little bit of water, they go back to sleeping. Like it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know.
Yeah. So, you know, to close out tonight and stuff like that, I wanted to pick your brain about a little bit about like morphs and dislikes and likes. With we'll go down the line a couple different species with the ball pythons. What are your like top morphs that you like and like top that you dislike?
Hmm.
Or I also should say bottom that you dislike.
No, it's just like there's certain reasons why I dislike certain things
Yeah.
more than like others, and it's like, I mean, like I said before, Sunset, Ultramel, like those are
Mm-hmm.
like probably my favorite ones. Hurricane, I absolutely like really love it.
Mm-hmm.
It has a really good super, and then like the like confusion acid stuff, it just adds like a lot of darkness, and then I really like the puzzle for like the pattern.
Okay.
So they're just like those are probably like my favorite ones. Um, as far as like dislike, it's like definitely a hot take, but it's like the desert ghost that everybody loves. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not as big of a fan of that.
Mm.
Part of it's because of like the hype that's built up around it. Um, I also don't want to pay like a desert ghost tax for getting something that has desert ghost in it, even though I care more about the other genes in it.
Yeah.
So like, and it's like, and I also don't really care or want to do something that like everybody else is doing because at that point, like, who are you going to be selling those to if everybody else is working the same exact thing? And
Yeah.
it's not like the hognose where there's that like line breeding aspect of it. So it's like that's one, and it's like I don't even really dislike it because there's a lot of pretty stuff with it. But there are some animals that are shown that don't have desert ghost in it, and the one that does not have that in it looks better than the one that does. So it's like really kind of hit or miss. It's pretty. I think there are other alternatives to that that are going to be more popular like in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they're nice, but it's just not for me. I still have some of it, and most of that is because I have already put so much time and effort into raising those up that I'm not going to get rid of them until I produce from them. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
still likely going to pursue those projects because I just like them. So it's like I'm still going to put effort into it, but it's because I like that specific combination. Um, yeah, I don't really have ones that I like dislike. I mean,
Yeah. I think
even ones that'll say like it's more like combos because it's like people will give pastel like a hard rap,
Mhm.
but it's like pastel actually works good in more things than it works bad in. So it's like people say a lot of bad stuff about pastel, but it's like pastel clowns are kind of the problem. But pastel clowns are only the problem unless you put Desert Ghost in it, unless you put Xanthic in it, unless you put like, then it becomes less of a problem.
Yeah.
But there's this like narrative, as Emilio likes to say, there's these narratives about stuff. And it's like, and then it becomes like a problem, which I get. Like, you don't want to like seed your entire collection with pastels and stuff, but it's fine,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And with the
there's a
ball
place.
pythons, you got to you be a little more selective because there's so much variance. There's so many options out there, right? Where, like you said, maybe not dislikes, but it's not something you're jumping to work with at the moment, right?
Yeah. And and it's like, and that I could answer probably a little bit. Like, I'm not a big fan of like genetic stripe. And it's only because it's very reducing in pattern. But at the same time, I like these damn super anaconda or super condas, and those things have no pattern at all.
Pattern,
So
yeah.
it needs to be like one or the other. Like,
Yeah.
it either needs to have a lot of it or none of it at all. Like, I don't want this like weird in between where there's nothing else I could really add to it. But even then, like some of those genetic stripe combos, they look cool. So it's like, it's always hit or miss. It's more about stuff that like I just, I don't want to put as much time and energy into, but that's because like time is kind of valuable, and it's like the rats that you're feeding these things are valuable. The time you're spent cleaning them is valuable, like all that stuff. So whenever you're working on these projects, you want to make sure it's something that you actually like for a project that you actually enjoy. So
Yeah.
that's
And then,
probably
okay. And then with the bloods, what are your top genetics there?
well, the combo that I like probably the most that's been done like so far is like the pixel stuff. It's just really cool. It's very similar to the monsoon,
Okay.
but the pixel is like all down the sides, and then the top is like blank. So it's really kind of a neat look. The batik is like very pixelated. The golden eye like adds a really nice like color and like pattern variant to it, but the combination keeps all the pattern on the sides and very little on the top. So that's
Gotcha.
really cool. I have a pairing this year, not to produce those, but golden eye to golden eye. So it's nothing fantastic. But those will produce magpies, which magpies are one of the first blood pythons I seen that was like really pretty. They're like almost all white, and then they have like black head markings. Like, they're just cool looking. They're kind of a super
Yeah.
conda of a blood python, basically.
Okay.
But they're really neat. And eventually I will get into the pieds for those, because the pied blood pythons are really, really pretty. But it's like, I don't know, my blood python stuff is T negative albinos because they get like fire engine red, like it's crazy. The goldeneye stuff, like the batik stuff, I'm just waiting for the right animals, and then eventually like the pied. But then like I also have like locality blood pythons, which is pretty much just like black bloods, and then I have caramel blood. So black blood is exactly what it sounds like. It's black. It's a shadow snake. The caramels are a very caramely brown kind of color, kind of like a toffee belly.
Okay.
And then they have like a very orange head. So it's like a lot of people call them like pumpkin heads, but these are
Gotcha.
like the caramel albino version of that. And it's like, they're just pretty. They're a snake that I think if I produce them occasionally, 1 year I'll do one, the next year I'll do the other, like kind of flip flop. And, it'd be a cool pet for somebody. It'd be something really cool for someone to enjoy. They're like $300 to $500. Like, they're not super expensive, and generally they're pretty handleable. Like the Sumatran short tails are usually like super chill. So, they're just, I think they just fit well. So,
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And then now with the berms, and we'll leave the hog nose to last because I'm gonna have a couple questions on there. So with the berms, what are you said you're producing some this coming year? Some will you say you were producing this year?
hopefully I'll produce some caramel granite pieds.
Okay.
I don't know if I will or not, because
Mhm.
my female, she's acting like she wants to, but my male is like doing nothing. So
Mm.
I might just have to, I don't even know what I'll have to do. It's like I want him to do the job, but who knows if he's ever gonna. So I might just have to get like my own, I might just have to like buy one just to have it and then breed it to my female that I already have, which defeats the purpose of having her. But at some point, like I need to make something with her because I invested way too much in that pair to like not get nothing.
Yeah.
But they're just pretty. And, you know, pieds and berms are like super, super nice. And that's all I really want. I want to make myself like a caramel berm or a caramel pied berm female that I can just raise up and have, or even a male. I don't really care. But I want to have that to just raise it up and enjoy it. And it's like, I'll probably breed it like once every like 3 years, maybe, just enough to produce a clutch, sell the stuff, offset the cost of food for a couple years, and that be good enough. You know, it's like I don't have a desire to produce a clutch of berms like every single year. Like I just want to have a very small collection, enjoy the ones that I have, and occasionally produce stuff so other people can also enjoy those as well. So yeah, pretty low drag on that. Like even my like hypo granite female that I have, I don't know if I'll breed her again, but it's like she's just pretty. She's a cool snake. She's awesome. Like I've had her for how long have I had that snake? So I think since like 2015 or something. Like I've had her for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And it's like she's a cool snake, man. She's just gonna live out her days here.
Oh yeah.
I have no idea what I'm gonna do with her whenever something happens. Like she is massive. So it's like, who knows? Dig a deep hole. I'm not sure. Get her skinned and tanned and have a beautiful skin somewhere. It's like, I don't know. But they're just cool. Like they're just enjoyable.
That's cool, man. And then so the hognose, you have a handful of them. What's your favorite stuff that you currently have?
It's hard to say because it's like whenever I open up like some of them, like they're favorites for different reasons. Like every single one of them, it's just like, man, that's freaking cool, you know? Like they're just neat. But like I said, that lavender super conda, like it's surprising to me how much I like that tone that it has. But it's very similar to like the Xanthic super conda. It's just like lighter and more like punchy, I think. The super Arctics, they just look really cool. Like I like the dark eyes.
Yeah.
But it's like at the same time, you know, like the sable albinos, it's like they're so like vibrantly like orange and like deep red. It's like every single one. It's like I can't, you know, who knows?
Pick one favorite.
Yeah. Because they're all cool. And it's like even like the leucistic, like I have like those, and it's like they're just so pretty. And it's I mean, there's nothing on them. You know, but it's because it's rare. But even like leucistic ball pythons are cool.
Yes.
But it's like they just got played out because there's so many ways to make it. But like in the hognose, it's really cool to see. And it's like, it's just neat. Like just again, it's like more of the personalities of them.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny. The Lucy stuff, I got my first Lucy this year, not long ago, like maybe a month or two ago. And
you gotta have it. You gotta see it in person to really really like it.
Yeah. And as you know, like now having one and really sitting, like looking at it, analyzing it, it's one of the coolest, like white, clean snakes you can have. The only reason I didn't get it earlier, just because that's all you can produce, right? White snakes. Where before the last couple of years, I was more concentrating on getting animals that have different heads to make different combos, different variations of what you get out of them.
You got to build the collection to like seed your future production.
Correct. So now, like I'm at that point where like, okay, now this is a perfect time for me to add a Lucy, because eventually I do want to produce Lucies, and they're just a cool little animal to have, you know. With the hognose morphs, is there something you've seen that just didn't really like draw your attention? Any specific like morph?
I mean, there's a lot of them, but I'm not gonna like throw a bunch of shade.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, if you go on to like, I'm gonna do it just for the sake of argument, just because it'll like maybe it'll prove my thought process here. But like if I go on to Morph Market and I just look up like hognoses and I sort by like say highest price, like most expensive, like some of the ones that are there, they just all look the same. Like some of them, they just kind of blend. Like whenever people start mixing like the caramels with the albinos with the this with the that, it's like they just all turn into like this like mesh with like no pattern and very similar color. And it's like that just doesn't do it for me. So it's like
Yeah.
I just don't see like an immense amount of value in that. And it's like, and I was talking to Krista recently. She was talking about some like Chihuahua gecko or something,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like debating whether or not she'd want that versus this other like gecko, or putting more effort into like other stuff. And I was like, dude, if I go to Morph Market and I look at these Chihuahuas, the one that's $500 looks the exact same as the one that's $3,000. Like I could like my eyeballs cannot tell you the difference.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would I want to put like 4 times the resources, i.e., money, into something that looks the exact same as something that is a third of the cost? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I don't want to do it for like if you. I just feel like if you start chasing the values of those things, like that's where the problem begins. And then you're constantly like, that's the problem I think in the ball python stuff is like everybody's chasing what can get them the biggest buck, not what they enjoy and like the look of the most. So I think if people just like use their eyes and they just do everything with kind of that grandma test of like what's visually like appealing, they'd probably find themselves in like a better situation. And it's like, I don't know. I think that's just kind of like where it's at, for me anyway. And
Yeah.
there are like some of those things that I think like they do look really cool. Like, like even like the like the like for instance, like the Xanthic sable, right? Like what's
Mm-hmm.
that, like a moonstone, or is that what it is? The
Storm cloud.
moonstone? Stormcloud, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's pretty. I like it, but like that's not like the price doesn't make sense to me, because you could get the same double visual of something else and it's like a fraction of like that cost.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful animal, but for the cost, I'd rather just make it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with the hognose stuff, it's like it's also kind of easy because it's like you could find like an Xanthic het sable probably, or like a sable het Xanthic, and get like a double het or whatever, do like the little
Mm-hmm.
like sable, or even like the like the sable albinos.
Yeah.
I always forget, man. Like it kind of is annoying with the hognose that they have all these fun, fancy names
Yeah.
for
With the.
everything. It's fun, but it also makes it really hard to like remember what's what.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's why I'm like, is it the solar flare, or is that like the solar flare? Is that like
Look, man,
Wakanda? Like, who knows?
and all like the albino sable names, I couldn't, if it depended on my life right now, I couldn't tell
Yeah,
you which one they
couldn't.
were. It's either sable conda, albino and stuff like that, or conda sunburst or super conda sunburst,
Yeah,
right?
sunburst.
Or
That's the one I was thinking of.
yeah,
So
sunburst.
the
So some
sunburst is just the albino sable.
sable, yeah,
But then it's
yeah,
like when you start mixing all these other things, then they
yeah,
become this, and then it's like
yeah,
this, and then it just gets real crazy. But
yeah.
some of them are fun and easy, like the Mai Tai. Like the Mai
Mm-hmm,
Tai is fun. Like
mm-hmm,
it's fun. Like it's a fun name. Like
yep,
it's I don't know, but it is hard to remember what those mutations are specifically.
yeah,
I do like, but I like the variety, of it, and it's like there's so many of those things where it's like you just make that stuff yourself,
mm-hmm,
like, and
mm-hmm,
it's like I did set myself up with like the hog nose that I did get to produce is like as many visuals as I can, and I'm also trying to do a lot of stuff where I'm not doing visual to visual super often.
mm-hmm.
And I did do stuff where I got, say, like one animal from one person, another animal from another person. So even if I am doing visuals, I'm not doing like visuals from the same person.
Yeah,
So they're going to be at least, distantly removed some kind of way.
yeah. I
You
think
know,
that's a great approach, man, because yeah, you want to, you people have what's it called, loyalty to one buyer, or feel comfortable with one producer and stuff like that. But I think with the hognose, especially where our gene pool is so small, if you're solely buying from one person only, you're eventually gonna either probably run into some issues, or maybe not get the results you're looking for in the results of like coloration, pattern, all that stuff.
Even like structure,
Mm-hmm,
all that stuff. But I think like aside from all that, I don't like that model on a business aspect either.
mm-hmm.
Only because like, so the only reason that I even have like the hognose is basically because I was able to sell the ball pythons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of that stuff mostly comes from my sunset project, just to throw
Mm-hmm.
another plug in there.
Mm-hmm.
But you have other people that maybe they didn't have a ball python, because ball pythons are, generally speaking, the more expensive of the snakes,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
there's a bigger market there, all that other market nonsense, right? um but for somebody that's coming up in like the hognose, like they need to be able to sell their animals.
Yep.
They need to, like, if they produce 3 clutches of hognose, to move up to the next tier, they need to either have produced those things to do that themselves, or they need to be able to sell those offspring to buy into that other project that they want to work. And I'm not even talking like to be money driven towards, like, they want the next more expensive project. No, they just want to upgrade from, say, really beautiful albinos to producing like sable albinos,
Yeah. Yep.
or they want to go from producing toffees to producing mai tais, or they want to go, whatever, they want to make like super arctic something or another's.
Yeah.
Like, they need that extra capital, and they don't want to put like their working job money, because it's kind of crazy, man. Like, not everybody has like this super amazing high paying job.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whenever they're work, like, same thing goes for like going to see a movie, going out to dinner or whatever. Like, if you're only making like 20 something bucks an hour and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
see a movie, like 1 hour of your life you just spent working to buy that one ticket.
Yeah.
Then you got to buy that other ticket for your wife. Then you got to buy that other ticket for your kids. Then you
Mm-hmm.
got to buy all the snacks. Next thing you know, you just spent like a whole work day working so you can go see this 2 hour movie to get drinks and popcorn. The
Yeah.
same thing applies to the snakes. Like, the people that are in the entry level, they need to be able to move their animals at a reasonable value, but they also need to be able to build up a reputation enough to where people feel comfortable purchasing those animals from them, and understanding like how to properly take care of everything, how to maintain like a healthy collection, all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. So that way, whenever they move that animal onto someone, it thrives and it does well, and then they come back for more stuff. And then next thing you know, their collection is going to start to progress and get better and better over time.
Yeah.
So for just the business sake, it's good for that wealth to be spread around amongst, several different, folks, whenever people are building their collection. But that's the importance of, being in some of these groups and stuff like we talked about earlier. And also like the importance again of like putting stuff out there on Instagram, putting stuff out there on YouTube, because it's like, I guarantee that you've made quite a few customers just based on the fact that you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yep.
They were like, man, these friggin' hognose snakes are cool. Where can I find one? Then they
Mm-hmm.
type it up, and then they see you doing all this stuff with like your family and everything, and they're like,
Yeah.
I like that guy. He's cool. He has really pretty animals. Oh, he's also in Florida, and I'm also in Florida. Like, maybe I can see one at a show, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
It's like, it's a very easy way to segue into like finding people that are going to be interested in your stuff, especially as someone that's new or newer
Mm-hmm.
into like keeping and everything else, is just putting your journey out there, because someone's going to resonate with it, and then they're going to
100%.
want to support you based on that same thing.
Yeah, man. And you know what? And like back to like, with buying certain animals to be able to produce one day and keeping, like you said, not taking this chunk of money and putting it all towards one animal. Like when I started, like most of my breeding females, I only have two visual females. Everything else is like double het, um, or
Yeah, so you
one
just put
visual.
more into your males occasionally to like
Correct.
use those females time over time. Yeah.
Correct. And now as the breeding season has passed on, I've kept the visuals females that I've produced from
And
these
then you're going to do
pairs.
it the other way, and then just get the powerful het males to take into them,
Correct.
or
Correct.
produce them, whichever way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's where you said, you had the ball pythons where you sold stuff, you moved stuff to be able to create more visuals. If you're just starting off, then it's okay to get heads. It's okay to gamble, even possible heads. I've had more possible heads prove out than not.
Yeah,
Like
you never know.
66% stuff. Um,
And
with
also,
that
it's
stuff.
like important to mention or important to think about too. Like one thing that like hognose, I think specifically have going for it that's a little bit better than say like ball pythons is a base, and I say like a normal hognose or
Hmm.
like a conda hognose or something like that is still a reasonably priced snake
Yeah.
to where if you put all this effort and energy and you happen to miss or whatever, like you're still going to produce an animal that's desirable to somebody
Hmm.
that just wants a regular hognose.
Correct.
Like it's not a bad looking animal. They're
Yeah.
still fun. So it's like even if you miss your odds, like it's fine, you know? But it's
Hmm.
like, if you can and your desire is to breed and produce, it's like getting hets for what you want. You're not going to put that much more into it than you are like a normal. If you're
Correct.
buying like a het albino or
Hmm.
even like an albino, like there's some deals out there where you can get some smoking prices for an albino. Like I felt like when I was growing up, for some reason, like getting a pet snake that was like $300 to $500 seemed like crazy high.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like for whatever reason now, I feel like that's not that big of a deal.
Hmm.
Like even for like a middle schooler, high schooler, whatever, if they were to like approach their parents and be like, I would like this snake as my like birthday or Christmas gift,
Yeah.
and it's like 300 to $500,
It's
that's not
doable.
that bad because
Yeah.
an Xbox or a PlayStation is the same price.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's like as long as they show that like legit interest in like raising that animal, it's like I feel like that's totally reasonable.
Hmm.
And a lot of kids these days, I feel like more so than when I was growing up, like I had a job when I was like 16.
Hmm.
It's like I feel like a lot of kids, especially if they have an interest like that, like they see the reptile stuff, they think it's cool, they like want to have like these like collections, they want to start breeding this stuff. So they're going to put a lot more effort and energy into like saving those funds to be able to purchase into the thing that they like. So
Yeah.
having animals that are, within that range, I think it's pretty reasonable that they could get into a very beautiful, line breeding project and, spend a couple like $300 to $500 on a female, raise it up for a year or two, get a male during that same time, and just start from scratch, see if they like it. It's the same thing with doing the videos on YouTube and whatever else, like
Yeah.
see if you enjoy doing it, and it's like start with a pet, start with a female so that way you don't lose time, and just grow it up, see how it feels.
No, I agree, man. And and I've seen it firsthand with my oldest daughter. She's 14 now. And she saved up her money. She wanted a lavender, and doesn't have lavender money, right? So she she got a Conda double head lavender albino female. And finally this year she's old enough, she's gonna breed it. Um, and luckily she's using a male that we produced last in 2023, actually, a Arctic coral male. So she
Hmm.
has some good odds to hit some cool stuff.
Nice.
Um, so like I see that, like you mentioned, that value is it's enough where a teenager, can save some money up,
Hey, if you want it bad enough, you'll
yep,
save.
100%,
You'll
100%.
ask about doing more chores or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
build up that bankroll over time or something.
yep. Yeah, man. And even for the people that adults that, young adults or, any adult that's starting off that wants to even just dabble in it, maybe get two pairs, something, it's not
Every hobby's
crazy.
expensive.
Yep.
Like
But
really,
man,
like every hobby is
yeah.
expensive. You get into anything.
Yep.
If you want to get into art, paint is expensive.
Hmm.
Markers are expensive.
Yeah. Fishing, all that,
Canvases are expensive. Yeah.
yeah.
Literally any
Same
hobby
thing.
that you get into is expensive.
Yep.
The only difference or the biggest difference with these reptiles is they're alive. So they
Hmm.
require a little bit more work because you got to do feeding and all that other stuff. But mice are cheap. Like frozen
Yep.
thawed mice, cheap.
Yeah.
So it's like very, very easy.
Yeah.
But it's like you're getting a return back out because say if you produce 20, 30 babies from like a clutch or two, right? Like you're going to have like 3 or 4 of those that you want to keep. Those are free now, as far as I'm concerned.
Correct.
Those are free.
Yeah.
The other ones that you don't need, you can sell those off to somebody else for whatever else. The only time you're going to lose money, honestly, is if you like sell the animals before you produce from them.
Yeah.
Any other time, like you will get that back. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
how long you want to wait until that happens. So
Yeah, and then the power of trading, right? Like that's such a big part of it too. Like you produce some stuff and you can trade.
yeah,
And that's, I think that's such a what's it called? Like a big powerful
it's good leverage, you know?
yeah, leverage of producing some cool stuff, because now you're making the animals that you're producing. You don't need to cash, you need to pull cash out of your own pocket for that.
That's also like a benefit of like having friends that are in it too, right? Because it's like, like Emilio, right? Like if he produces like a hognose that you like and you have one that he likes, y'all are buddies. You know how he keeps his stuff. You know his stuff is good. He knows your stuff is good. Like you guys have a good relationship, and it's like, I could really use that male. You're like, I could really use that female. It's like, well, what's up?
Yeah.
Like let's meet at IHOP or something. Like get this
Yeah.
done. It's
man.
like, and it works out because it's like it's not a loss if you're just swapping opportunities, really. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, now obviously you can't do that all the time because you do need to offset the cost of the racks, you need to offset the cost of the food, you need to offset the cost of your time. But like in reality though, like to further your own projects,
Correct.
you could either sell the animals you produce and then buy that, or you can trade with someone that you know and trust and get that animal the same exact way and not have to spend anything. So either way, it works out as long as both people, and values and stuff don't even matter anyway. If that like $500 animal is the one that you need, and that like $750,000 animal is the one that they need, and you really need that one, like it's it's perfect. It doesn't really matter. Like,
Correct.
it's more about like the value for like you and your collection versus the monetary value that we randomly assign to it. They're all the same, like $200 hognose. They all just have different colors. So same thing with ball pythons. They're all a $25 normal with different colors. Some
That's
of them
true.
just have a couple extra zeros on them for some reason.
Yeah, man.
So,
And that's one thing that's not hard, but sometimes trying to get people to understand when they're first, the sticker shock. Sometimes when they see it, prices at a show, trying somebody to really understand why does it cost that much, and we're talking about like time frame. My biggest thing is like, how long does it take for you to get to that animal, right? That's
you're buying time is what you're buying.
Exactly. That's my biggest thing when I explain to somebody. It's like, it's just the time that it took us to get to this animal you're seeing today. That's basically it, because other than the morphs and, like you mentioned, right, a snow compared to a, so a Xanthic albino compared to a Xanthic sable, totally different price ranges, right? Like
same exact amount of work.
Correct.
But the difference is like rarity. There's more of one available than there is another. But like it is kind of funny though, because if you break it down to, it's like, well, if you really wanted to get technical, you could buy a pair of hets for this gene and a pair of hets for this gene, raise those up, 1 in 4 odds to produce the visual, raise those up, breed those. Now all of a sudden you're 3 generations deep. You're talking about 6 years just to get to a point where you have 2 normal snakes that carry both of those genes to put together. It's like, and 6 years would be a nice timeline.
6 years is a good time.
So you're talking about 7 years before you're producing a double visual if you're starting from like hets and you're breeding both projects side by side. Like,
correct,
you're just buying time, and it's correct. And that's all it is, time and the amount of those types of animals that are available.
And, back to, right, like the time is the most valuable thing that we have as humans, because there's no way to get it back, right? Once it's gone, it's gone. And talking about time, I appreciate you coming on tonight and talking and stuff like that. Was there any other topic you want to touch base? Anything that you want to tell the viewers before we close out tonight?
No, man, I think we covered a lot of variety.
Yeah. And guys, if you want to, reach out, check out Brandon's stuff. His links are down below in the description to his morph market, his all his social media and stuff. The last thing I want to tell you guys is this weekend we are doing another Repticon. We'll be in Repticon Fort Myers this weekend. So if you guys are in the area, want to check out some hognose, want to pick one up, or just come and pick our brain and talk about hognose, stop by, say hi. We're going to be there. Again, thank you for tonight, Brandon. Thank you for your time. And if you have anything for me, let me know. Guys, make sure you subscribe and like to the channel, and make sure you go follow Brandon on his social media. And for tonight, guys, good night, and we'll see you guys on the next.